We're going to go ahead and get started. All right, so I have put the recording on. We're going to record this. We are going to try and stream it live to Facebook here at some point. We'll see one more time if that happens to work. Hopefully it does. If not, you guys are my witnesses that I tried, and people will just have to watch the recording, or they'll have to pop in directly. If anybody wants to help monitor Messy Middle and see if anybody posts anything about the event or has questions, if anybody needs the login, that would be super helpful because it doesn't look like Facebook wants to cooperate today.
I think that was Sheena that said she'll admin.
Cool. Thanks, Sheena. I just posted it in Messy Middle. I'm going to throw the Zoom info in here. And we'll be off. All right. How's everybody doing? Good. You can unmute yourself if you would like to speak.
Awesome. It's a pretty day in DC.
Awesome. Thanks, Sheena.
I'm pumped about this.
I know. I'm pumped about this too. So this is going to be amazing. All right. So doesn't look like it's going to let us go live right now. I'm going to leave that just in case it does. I'm going to start right here. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So the first thing, like I said, we're going to open this up to everybody. I put the link out there. If you guys want to share the link with anybody, feel free to share the link. Feel free to post the link to the Zoom on your own personal Facebook page or share it anywhere you want. We want to open this up to as many people as possible because Messy Middle really is a culture of sharing and giving out as much free, amazing things as possible, and also raising as much money for charity as possible. And so the first time that we set out to raise a bunch of money for charity was in 2019 in New Orleans. And we went to House of Blues and we raised money for a charity, this charity right here called Fight DMD. And DMD is Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. And so these two little boys here and Terry, we got to know them through Sheena, through a speaking engagement that she did. And we decided that we wanted to raise some money for their charity. And so at our Messy Middle event in New Orleans, we were actually able to raise over $16,400 for this charity, which was pretty incredible. And then we went to Nashville, and in October, we set a goal to raise enough money to build one well. And so we had a goal to build a well. We wanted to bring clean water to over 2,000 people in sub-Saharan Africa. And 3 days later, if you were with us in Nashville, you'll know we were able to, in about 5 minutes, raise enough money to not build one well, but to build 4 wells with over $35,000 donated, bringing clean water to over 8,000 people. And really, we're able to set a ripple effect, right? A chain reaction in motion that has now brought Generosity Global to many, many more people. We followed that up with our event in Dallas, where we encouraged more people to become a part of our Generosity Global Funder Circle. And in doing so, we've raised another $15,000 more at that event and ongoing donations. So, $20 a month or $40 a month across a lot of people can lead to a very, very large impact. And I know some of the people on this call have already gotten involved with that, which is amazing. Then we had COVID hit, right? And we had this crisis in Kenya. And there were, little girls that were getting pregnant and people weren't able to eat and people didn't have clean water, of course. And so we decided we would raise a bunch of money for that effort. And through our COVID-19 efforts, we raised over $23,000 for that. So $16,000 plus in New Orleans, over $35,000 in Nashville, and another $23,000 earlier this year, just doing virtual things. So this tribe is absolutely incredible. The next event we have coming up is going to be Mission Ball 2020. Mission Ball is exactly 1 month from today. It's actually 1 month from tomorrow. It's November 21st. It's a digital event. It's going to be amazing. So please go to Mission Ball 2020 if you want to check out more details about that. And then lastly, and not least, we are going to be raising all our money on this event for this charity here, Amputee Blade Runners. And so Jonathan White, he actually has adopted several children internationally, and one of his children is an amputee and does have a blade. And so she's very passionate about this. I'm sure later he will talk more about this charity and what it means to him. But if you get anything of value out of this event, I would really highly encourage you to please make a donation. If you've already bought a ticket, that's great. We're going to donate 100% of the ticket sales from this event to Amputee Blade Runners. And if you haven't yet, you can Venmo Sheena. It's at Sheena-Sadum. And I'll go ahead and put it in the chat box. And that is how you can Venmo money to donate to Amputee Blade Runners. So thank you again all for joining us. We are super excited to share with you a whole bunch of phenomenal content. We have some amazing guest speakers lined up today, and I will be announcing them in just 1 second. Sheena has turned her camera on. That's awesome. I'm glad she found her makeup. I didn't even know she owned makeup, so that's good. I'm not sure if she remembers any of our panelists' names yet, so we'll go ahead and quiz her if she knows any of these people that are joining us today. I'm just teasing. And I see Jessica's hopped on. That's awesome. Lindsay is here. I'm sure Mr. Beer will be with us any second now. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a couple introductions. So the first person I'm going to introduce is our early bird, Lindsay Dodge. Lindsay Dodge joined us early right away. Her team this year, they're going to do over 470 units, 500, over five. She sold some houses this weekend. So they're going to do over 500 units, help over 500 families make a move, which is really incredible. They're going to do over 120 million, maybe 130 million. Maybe if she sells one more house, it'll be 140 million. Who knows? So pretty incredible. Lindsay's only been in this for about 6 years, which is nuts. I can't imagine anyone with that much success in that short amount of time. And she leads a team of over 50. So I think we can all agree that we will get a ton of value out of what she has to share with us here shortly. Additionally, we have Jessica Woodbeck on. So I will spotlight her. So, hey, Jessica, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm so good. How are you?
Awesome. Excellent. And so she has over 15 team members. Her team will do 200 plus units this year. Is that correct?
Hey, yes.
Perfect. And has a 95% retention rate over the last 2 years, which is just mind-boggling if you've tried to run a team of kids that you're trying to organize and keep accountable and hit their goals and make sure they can pay their bills and all that stuff. So really pretty cool. You are definitely doing the right thing on the hiring side of everything. And last but not least, Mr. Beer should be joining us shortly, but I'll go ahead and intro him. Daniel Beer, one of my mentors, he is based out of San Diego, California. He will sell over 400 homes this year, has over 50 team members, will do over 300 million in volume. So he's just kind of a little bit of a slacker, and is now getting into flipping. He is doing some amazing things with the group that he's leading at EXP, has over, I believe, 1,000 people in his revenue share organization. So pretty cool what Dan has built for himself as well. So let's all take a 1 minute break to check our texts, do anything else that we need to do, and then we are going to get started with this panel in just 1 second. Sheena, you have anything you want to add right now?
I'm just so happy for everyone who is here. And I know it's a busy time for everyone. And I know we're recording so that we're able to share this information. And when folks do have time to come on and listen, They're just going to get so much great content from you all. I'm excited. I'm ready to take notes. I just shared in my own small business mastermind group. So hopefully we can get a few more folks to come on, because I know this information is great, not just for real estate agents, but all small business owners. And I'll just be updating the Messy Middle group as I have my own ahas, and just reminding people to come on and take a few minutes to come in and learn something. So thank you all for being here.
Awesome. And I am going to try one last time, because I really want to stream this live on Facebook. Facebook is being a total pain in my rear right now, not allowing me to do it. So give me 1 second while I try and load up this stream one more time to see if we can put it out there for our friends. And then we will get going.
Megan Simpson, thank you so much for your extraordinary donation to Blade Runners I just got from you. Thank you.
And Sheena, you want to plug your Venmo one more time and explain that a little bit?
Yes. All right. So we decided, because we're not having you go directly to Blade Runners, just because we want to make sure that we can calculate how much is coming from this group. So if you want to donate, if you get anything from this, so anyone who's watching this recorded live later, if you get even one piece of great content, we are asking you to make a donation that you feel comfortable with to Blade Runners, but do it through Venmo. So just send, you can send to me at Sheena-Sadam, SHEENA-SAYDAM. And once I get everything in over the next 2 days or so, I will make that donation to Blade Runners. So yeah, thank you all so much. Yeah, important organization.
Thanks, Sheena. Really appreciate it. All right, we are all here, and I am going to go ahead and start. So we are going to get started on our cultural leadership panel, which is going to be featuring Lindsay and Jessica and Dan Beer. So the first question that I'm going to ask each of you, you don't all have to answer every single question, but I would like you all to answer the first question, which is, how would you describe your team culture? Oh, and Dan, since you just jumped on, I already introed you. I already told them that you sell every house in San Diego. I told them it's like 400, 500 units, depending on the day of the week. So we're good. We made sure we covered that. And send all your referrals for San Diego to Dan Beer. He's awesome. All right, so first question is, how would you describe your team culture to a stranger? Who wants to go first?
I'd be happy to.
All right, perfect.
So I'd say to a stranger that our culture is based on accountability. It feels like a second family.
Awesome.
So, yeah, that would be it in a nutshell. And if I had to elaborate, let's say the stranger said, well, what do you mean by that, Jess? I would say we have a saying within our group that goes along the lines of, I care more about you and your goals than I do you liking me at any given moment. And so we push each other back to our culture code and accountability at all times.
I think that's really cool. I think I heard a really cool thing the other day, which is like, accountability is the highest form of love.
Yes.
Which I think that speaks to what you said, right? It's not about you liking me. It's about me being able to care about you and ensure that you hit your goals. So I think that's really cool. Who wants to go next?
Next. So I would tell somebody we're a grassroots startup company. We're committed to finding and developing the best possible people and making our community a better place. And to elaborate a little bit more, our kind of little mini logo is get local, give local, live local. So we're about getting people into the community, getting immersed, making sure that they know what's going on so they can really be a valuable part of the community, and then getting back. We're independent, and we're really big on supporting and uplifting other local businesses and local nonprofits in our community.
Very cool. All right. And Dan, how would you describe your team culture to a stranger?
Well, our purpose statement is to live big, win together. I would tell them that it's intense, that it's very focused. It's very different from what they probably picture when thinking about real estate agents. We're not, running around doing our own thing, hoping to sell a few houses here or there. That it is an environment that's really not suited for most people. It is for the most committed, most dedicated folks out there. And if they're still listening, of course, it's all summarized within our core values. That it's a group of people that are gritty, that are learning based, where there's a very high value on everyone being a leader, regardless of title, where we are always innovating. And that has this really incredible mindset of abundance that's just rare to find in the industry, which is why we're able to serve the community at such a high level on such a consistent basis.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I think you guys are all very selective about your who, right? And so we'll get into that a little bit more about finding the right people. Jonathan White, our keynote, who's going to be speaking later, one of the big takeaways we had from him in Nashville was, you know, culture is the right people on a mission together, right? And so I think you've all done a very successful job of finding the right people that are all rowing in the same direction, right? We've all seen those teams where half the team's rowing one way, half the team's rowing the other, and they just spin around like a circle, right? So next question, what did you do right early on that made a big impact in setting up your culture?
You know, for us, and granted it evolved, right? Everything has evolved. The way we approach our day-to-day has changed. But when this iteration of our team got off the ground, and the reason I say that is most people, ourselves included, you know, spend typically a few years building the wrong everything, the wrong system, the wrong format, the wrong team, the wrong economic model, the wrong everything. And we did the same thing for years. And so anyway, this version of it, number one, is we got on a path early on. When I stepped out of the buyer business, I didn't step out of the buyer. And by the way, there's someone typing that we should mute.
I think I typed it. I muted Jessica. No, it wasn't her. Never mind. I'll unmute her.
Okay.
All right, good. Thanks, Dan.
So early on, when I decided I was stepping out of the buyer side of the business and going to become the listing agent for the team, I didn't step out of the buyer's side of the business if it was just not an awesome buyer. I didn't step out of the buyer's side of the business if it was not, you know, a high end or $1 million deal or a referral or, you know, so what I'm getting at is in most teams, the environment ends up being that the team leader is really a competitor of its own agents. And a lot of the agents get what the team leader doesn't want, get what the team leader can't handle, price points they don't like, neighborhoods they prefer not to go to. On my team, immediately from day one of stepping out of the buyer business, it didn't matter that my own brother purchased a home a short time later. It didn't matter that an NFL football player purchased a home a short time later. The Chargers GM a short time after that. None of that mattered. I have not worked a buyer independently at all since since 2015. And then the same thing happened when we came out of the seller side. And so when you have an environment where 100% of the opportunity is for the agents on the team, where my only role is as a servant of theirs my role is to create strategy, marketing, et cetera, make the, leads, rainmaker, right? All those things, but just genuinely for them. That sets the tone. And then the other thing was, because I made that decision and it was such a strong decision, once we started to add agent 3, 4, 5, 6, and those early days, and by the way, those days are so much fun. Those days when you have like this, feels like a Navy SEAL team and everyone's so in, and there's the evolution of growth where then that starts to kind of, everyone gets sad that that's falling apart because you're growing more, whatever. We can go into that if you want. But point being, back in those days, it was us. I mean, we were there and these guys were in a room making, in those days, it was 50 contacts in your first 30 days and 40 in your next and 30 in your next and 20 forever. And without getting into all the detail of it, the point is that it was a very high degree of intensity. And I also was able to actually hold them to it and make them commit to it because they understood that all of the opportunity was for them. So it was worth working for. Mm-hmm. So I think those two things in combination, the opportunity side, that hasn't changed. The way we work and like the absolute crazy intensity of it. I mean, it was like military format back then. That has definitely changed, but it left us with, it stayed in our DNA, right? Like it stayed as a piece of who we are, even if it's not entirely who we are.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So that's
I heard you say recently that sometimes you still go on an appointment or two, and I loved what you said about it. You were like, it's always kind of like a mistake, right? You said like it's because
Cool.
you're like you feel for some reason that you needed to be there or whatever, but ultimately like you didn't, right? Like,
first of all, it's very important to note that if I go on the appointment, it's only to support. I'm never alone, so I'm always there with an agent on our team, supporting them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't pay them any different. I pay them identically to as if I was not there. So, when none of that like extra cushioned revenue ever hits our P&L, right? Which can sometimes make a P&L look inflated. So they're paid as if I wasn't there. I'm fully there in support. And then, yeah, I mean, what I probably shared with you, it's that, most of the time it's I didn't have it. I made myself a little bit more important than I needed to be. I didn't actually need to be here. They could have come and done it on their own.
But I love that as a takeaway, right? Like that you as a leader can acknowledge that you made yourself more important than you needed to be. Like because you're amazing, but they're amazing too, right? You've empowered your team to go out and get it. Ladies, what do you want to share on that topic? Do either of you want to go?
I'll go. So as Dan alluded to, we've had multiple iterations, as I think everybody has, and we've done plenty wrong. But something that I think we've done right from day one is we have a very understated leadership culture here. So we don't really do the like rock star agent, mega agent, look how awesome I am from the top. We really try to lead bottom up and by example. So I think that as a leadership team, we're very humble, we're very approachable, and we've always kind of approached more of like an organizational web, I guess, than like a hierarchy, bottom down. I think that's something we've always done well, is we've really allowed our staff to take ownership and allowed our agents to take ownership, and really tried to structure ourselves more as a supportive role. Even though we're technically the leaders of the organization, we really give them and let them run with it whenever we can. Where is their like format, or how do they voice their opinion when they want to tell you that you're doing something wrong? Usually they just say that, hey, are you sure about that? But we have weekly staff meetings every week. And one of the things we always go around every single time is we say, where are you capacity wise and what can we do better? And we've just created a setup where I really think any person in our organization, from the front desk person to the ops manager, everybody can come in and they can say, hey, what do you think about doing it that way? We've really tried to say, okay, well, if you're owning this, like we're switching e-signature software right now, I'm probably not the most qualified person to decide whether we go with X or Y because I'm not in it every day. So our ops person needs to make that decision. We really try as much as possible to let them be the decision makers if it's something that's in their lane. I heard a great, Christy Grossman yesterday or sometime recently just said, like somebody posted like, hey, which transaction coordination system should we use? Whatever, I'm hiring for a new admin. And then she was like, no, just hire the admin and then let the admin figure it out, right? It's not, you don't have to make all those decisions, right? Great people will make those decisions and they'll improve them over time. Jessica, anything you want to share?
You know what? I am being honest here. I don't know what the original question was.
The original question was, what did you do right early on that made a big impact?
Yes. Early on, nothing. We did nothing right early on. We did all the wrong things early on.
Okay. Well, then let me segue to my next question. How did you drop the ball on culture that came back to bite you?
Oh gosh, this is an easy one. We did the quantity over quality model right from the gates. So we got our mission statement, which happened to be our franchise brokerage statement, and just said, okay, let's hire, right? Quantity over quality. Let's go. That's the model. Everyone's doing it. And it was miserable. Everyone was miserable. We weren't clear as leaders. We weren't educated enough as leaders. We weren't really answering any of the problems that agents have on a day-to-day basis. It was, here's leads, here's tech, go. We didn't have a system. We didn't have a model. We didn't have care involved in how they were able to achieve their best life. I don't think we even knew what their best life looked like. We never even asked. So that would be it. And we did it twice. We did that, we burned it down. We did it again, burned it down, and then said, okay, pause. totally pause right now and figure out who we are, what we represent, exactly what we can do for others and what we cannot. Claim it, right? Grab it and say, I can't do this. For us, we don't do part-time agents. We're just not equipped right now. We're in that kind of whitewater rafting stage of, we're still a smaller company. We have 15 people. And we're just not equipped to do the part-time agent thing. And for a long time, you know, it was take everybody, right? Just bring in everyone, your license, let's go. And we've realized that right now in the stage that we're in, we really can't serve part-time agents as best as they need to be served. We don't have enough staff to do it, those sorts of things. So really owning exactly what you can offer and what you cannot, who you are, what you represent, and how you answer the problem to your avatar. We're not everything to everyone. You know, we want to hire, we want everyone to know we're hiring, and we can't be everything to everyone. So we're really clear on that. You know, we're okay with saying, hey, we're not best for you, but hey, my buddy down the street is. You're looking for leads and that's all you want. You don't want culture, you don't want accountability, go there.
I think that's a bold, it's not bold, but it seems bold because it's hard to draw a line, right? Like you want to grow and you want to bring on talent. And so to say, no, we're not taking on part-time agents, or no, we're not a fit for the X, Y, and Z, right? Because sometimes the person who comes in like the most on fire, that is so good, right? They're so hot, they're so awesome. But then like there's 17 red flags as to why they're not a cultural fit, right? And they start asking all the wrong questions up front, or they don't ask any questions or whatever it is, right? And so it can be hard to say no to people that might seem like, oh, I'm gonna miss out. But I think to protect the integrity of your group, right? You can't let poison in the well, so to speak.
You know, John, that's what's really interesting about what Jessica, literally right now, Jessica, you helped me realize something, or at least put a couple things together that I like semi-realized. But I always talk about, and I typically come at this from a price point perspective, but it really applies here. I always talk about how, you know, the story of Tesla versus Hyundai. And here, and what it is Tesla started off with the Model S, okay? The Model S, which was really very specific, very unique, like they knew exactly what they were trying to be. It, by the way, sold for $100 and something thousand a car. And that's what they established their culture, their brand, you know, their perception of who they are. It was with the Model S. Because they started off with the Model S, they then had the license to sell boatloads, unlimited amounts of Model 3s.
Right.
Okay, right? So they can now sell $30,000, $40,000 cars at like, boom, at will, because they started with the Model S. And when I'm typically talking about this, I'm talking about price points, and sometimes it's the answer to, you know, why is my price point typically higher than the rest of my marketplace? Or, you know, when you're thinking about brand and what it's going to look like, if, you know, you better, you know, anyway, I typically tie it to that. But what I'm realizing is, you know, when I got done burning it down and actually built it right with, you know, what I call this like SEAL team a moment ago, but I didn't realize it was what I was doing, because it's not that anymore. But what I didn't realize that I was doing was, you know, I'm a big believer in it has to be big. I'm a big believer in that if you have 4, 5, 6 agents, you might be having a blast right now. Very painful days are ahead for you. You're going to get your heart broken. It's going to fall apart. You're not going to be happy. Not in the long run. Having said that, if you do what Jessica just described, and so to solve that, you go, okay, great. Well, let's have 30 people on day one. You're not going to be able to figure out what goes where, who you are. It's going to be really messy. That's kind of like tying it back to that analogy. It's sort of like starting with, well, I didn't finish the story. Let's go to Hyundai for a moment. Hyundai, let's actually forget about Hyundai. The Genesis. You guys know the Genesis, the vehicle, the Genesis? It's a freaking awesome vehicle. It's one of the best vehicles. It is so loaded. It's right up there with the Mercedes S-Class, a BMW 7 Series. It probably does more, offers more, is more comfortable, better features, and cheaper by like a good 15, 20K. But they can't sell any. They can't sell any because the company started as Hyundai. So it's very difficult to like be this, you know, for the masses and then all of a sudden become for the elite.
Yep.
So if you do what Jessica's now talking about doing, which I didn't realize, like that's the same way I fixed my business eventually, where it was for the elite. It was 6 of us. And we really got to know who we were. And once we understood that, you know, before you lose 1 or 2, which if you do the math on it, 2 out of 6 is like a huge percentage of your team and you fall apart and I'll go, before that happens, start adding person number 7, 8, 9, 10, you know, get yourself to 20. Yes, get yourself to 30. But you do have to go through that elite phase the way Tesla went through the Model S being their only vehicle phase.
Nice. Thanks, Dan. Lindsay, how'd you screw it up?
Oh, too many to count. Let's focus on staff. So when we first started, first of all, we were all in our 20s at the time. And we were so excited that somebody wanted to work for us, particularly if they had any experience in anything remotely administrative related. And we got people who knew how to do their jobs, and they were toxic. They were terrible. And they made everyone afraid to come in the office, and they were afraid to ask. We do still have our very first hire. She's great. But pretty much everybody else, the next 3 or 4 people we hired were just good at their jobs and just not good people. And it took us over and over and over again to realize we needed to hire the right people, because you can teach skills. You can teach knowledge as long as you're working with the right basic personality profile and the right type of person, a good person, somebody who's emotionally invested in the people and the company. So everybody we've hired since, I think, has had no real estate experience at all. They've had similar types of roles in the healthcare industry or some other type, if it's an administrative role, some other type of management. But we have hired everybody with no experience, but they're the right person and they're the right
So let's segue. What is your ideal team avatar? Describe the type of profile of the person that you're looking for.
So we're total weirdos. Our successful team agent is typically a high S. We don't really do well with your typical natural salesperson. We bring them in, we get really excited about them. We have almost a 0% success rate in actually keeping them retained and happy as team members. We do really well. We've built the model, right? So we've built a system of directions to plug them into. And we do really well with people who can take the existing system, plug themselves into it. They're emotionally invested in their clients. They're typically really reliable. They care about client satisfaction. They care about following the process, because when they follow our process, it works for the client to be happy and it works for our admin to get them to the closing table.
It's almost like an administrative type of profile that you're hiring for that side, which is really interesting because you're so systems based. So you need them to be able to buy in and do that without being too much of a diva.
And we're a word of mouth and like marketing based company in terms of bringing business in. So we really don't want the rock star. We don't want the person who wants their face and their name all over everything. We have a really good brand presence in our market. So we want people who are excited about promoting who we are and enjoying playing a part in the brand and a part in the process rather than being front and center and the star.
That's awesome. Jessica, what are you looking for in an ideal team member?
I'd say it's similar. I mean, it's an agent who has done 0 to 24 deals in the last 12 months. They're process oriented, which has switched. That has not always been the case. I'd say this year is the first year, and especially since COVID, where we have switched gears to look for that process oriented person whom is team spirited. And we have a very similar slogan that Lindsay has, which is we hire to culture and we coach to skill. Because we've done it the other way around. I've hired the $5 million, the $10 million producer, which in Metro Detroit is, a mega agent. And it just, they're not process oriented. They have their own way of doing business. They don't really want to conform, yet they also want the leverage. And there's this ego struggle. I'm good at everything though. How do I let go? So we have shifted big time to that newer agent that loves systems, loves a process, is looking for training, that sort of thing. Or even just the agent that's done that 24 deals where they're still financially in need, and they understand that doing it all is just not for them. You know, doing all the marketing, all the contracts, everything is just not there for them, because we're totally full service. So we're staffed pretty heavily for the agent count that we have.
Dan, what about you? Are you looking for a similar profile, or how do you describe your ideal team member that you're on the hunt for?
Parts of it are similar. I prefer, we'll bring on a new agent, but if we bring on a new agent, like they have to be one of the most impressive people I've talked to in months. I mean, excuse me, they have to be like just freaking awesome. And anything short of that, I'm just not into new agents. It's, you know, look, the industry success rate is so darn low that even if we can triple the success rate, even if we can quintuple the success rate, it's just still a drag on time for me, in my mind. Mm-hmm. So I much, the ideal person for us is somebody that often is on another team. They've been selling homes. If you're on another team and you're selling 1 or 2 homes a month, or even like a half home a month, but you're the right person, you're gonna sell more homes on our team, period. Like you're just going to. There's very few teams, let alone in San Diego, but in the country, that supports the agent on a deeper, bigger level, which, by the way, also has a cost issue to it, right? To be able to do that, there's a lot more employees on my team than in a typical team. So therefore, the splits are the most aggressive toward the team than anywhere else. So conversation number one is, hey, are you sure you want to have this conversation? Because you realize we have the worst splits in the industry, right? And then once that's out of the way, if we're still talking, there's someone that's looking for the right thing. And what they tend to know is that our agents make more than most people, but we get rid of, like, I'm okay with them bringing up splits once early, because that's human. If they circle back to it, it's automatically the wrong person.
What are your splits? Just so everybody knows, like, what's the worst split in the industry?
Well, John, the truth is this is like, I'm a pretty open book, and I'll share it with you. This isn't something I publish out there, because if I'm my competitor, I would have a field day with it. That they have to get into a conversation with us to understand, because just telling you the split doesn't tell you anything.
No.
That's like if I told you I just bought a car for $50,000. What does that tell you?
So the split's low. So I'm guessing it's not a 50-50. So the split's low. How much?
Well, sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower. Yeah. And by the way, I've been watching a lot of political debates, so I know exactly how to avoid answers. But here's the deal. If I tell you that I bought a car for $50,000, you have no idea if I got ripped off, mm-hmm. because I bought like a used Buick from the 70s with 100,000 miles on it. Sure. And you have no idea if I got the deal of a century because it's Rolls Royce. You don't know what that means if I just say I got a car for $50,000. Yeah. So the point being, though, is they're definitely not focused on that. They are focused on money. That I'm okay with.
Well, that was going to be my follow-up. How much money do you want them to be able to earn? Or like, what kind of mindset do they need to have? Like, do you want them coming in being like, I want to make 75 grand? Is it 100? Like, what level of money do they want to have to hunger for?
Well, one of the interviews we go through is we ask them to envision their life 3 years out. And if somebody were to ask them what as far as their career is concerned, how's your career doing? And what that would look like, and what would you be earning, and that kind of thing. And so, in order for them to be able to say it's awesome, not that they have reached every goal they'll ever have, but just simply, where do you have to be so you could just say it's awesome? And then it's our responsibility to make sure we actually have an environment that can match what they want, right? So in other words, if they say, well, 3 years from now, I need to be making $700,000 a year, I don't know that I can guarantee them that we have the environment to make 700. I don't know that I have that, okay? Because we have very high earners, north of 300, north of 4, but I've never had a 7, so I can't hire them because we're going to disappoint them. On the flip side, if they say, gosh, well, within 3 years from now, I'd like to be making I'd like to be making a solid 60, 70, $80,000 a year. This is too small a thinker.
Mm-hmm.
So I also don't want to spend the time investing in that person. We need to make sure that they're in a realistic, aggressive, because we're an aggressive team, but realistic zone where we could actually deliver on what they're looking for. I'll yield here because I could go on this topic forever, but it is about being transparent. It's about, there's too many people that interview people saying things like, here's all the amazing things about us and all the things that are going to be incredible. We'll tell them, look, there's a good degree of dysfunction here, just like there is anywhere else. I don't, I'm not sure what other folks are saying, but here we have problems. Now, Jessica and I both learned this dialogue from our coach. But it's about being real with what it is and what it's not, and not compromising who you're going to be one bit because you think like, oh, but this person deserves a special deal, which by the way, there are no special deals on my team, right. Just as a side note.
You know what I loved so much, and I hope you don't mind me jumping in, that you just said,
yeah, thank you. You saved me. I'm
totally do another car analogy. Let's go somewhere else. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I live in the automotive capital, so I love those. Those are great. No, what was so interesting to me is if someone said they want to curate a lifestyle around, $750,000 a year, and you saying, hey, I've never had someone like that. I don't think I can hire you. I would almost beg to disagree with that, Dan, because I am curious what someone would be willing to do to make that income. And that would be my next question. Well, what does it take to make $750,000 a year in your mind as a 3-year agent? What is that agent doing? How often are they working? What are you willing to do?
Yeah,
I think that's fair. And I think that, I think that's a great point. And
the only reason I'm saying this is because one of my most amazing staff members came to me as a desired agent. She desired to be a multimillionaire. She wanted to net $1 million within her first 12 to 24 months. She was a transplant from another state, and we went through that. We went through, and at that time, I mean, my God, I was in the middle of burning that house way down. So I mean, I really was at the lowest value proposition possible. And here she is. She's like, I want to net $1 million, and I thought, okay, well, what does that look like to you? What is, when you net $1 million, what are you having to do in order to get there? And she walked herself out of that consideration in 24 months and postponed it. Said, okay, as we just went through this, that doesn't seem realistic. I said, okay, well, I could support an ongoing growth effort towards that goal. And it worked out. So that was curious to me that, that was a response.
Yeah, well, look, there's a real relationship between risk and possible reward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my team I see as a low risk environment in that day one you have 16 staff members that work for you. Day one you have we have people that joined us a couple months ago and they're working with 21 active buyers, right? Like it's a lower risk environment. And when you're in a lower risk environment, reward and risk have a correlation everywhere, right? Like there's never been anywhere where you've ever seen an investment that just seemed like, oh my gosh, there's no risk here. Well, there was, sometimes it's harder to see it. It's hidden. That's why the reward was so big. So I can put someone on a path to that. I just don't know that it's going to be on my team. I'm likely going to have to transition them to my brokerage side and our collaboration side, our growth group that we have. And they're going to have to take on more risk. They're going to have to know what it's like to write the check at the beginning of the month, the way I do, before you even have a dollar that's come in revenue. Right. So they're going to have to go there. I don't know that I can keep them in a zero risk environment, like on my team, and have them get that kind of reward.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think that speaks to the personality profile of somebody who's going to succeed in your organizations, right? You bring up a really good point that the lower the risk is, the lesser the reward tends to be, right? And when they're not putting their own money on the line, then really what I like to focus on for people, right, is when an agent on your team takes home their GCI, their commission check, it's all profit. Right. And so you may stroke a bunch of checks, you may spend a lot of money, all to achieve at the end of the day, percentage wise, right, the same amount, no matter how low their split is, because it's pure profit at the end of the day for them, because you're taking on so much risk.
That's right. Like, so I'm in the position that they're describing they want to be in, but I also had 6 figures of loss in the beginning of this year when things were tough and COVID hit and things, and, it's coming, also it hit like coming out of the winter months. So it's a perfect storm, and you come out of the first quarter and you're, more than in a single month, 100 grand in the hole. If you're willing to do that, then absolutely, I can coach you to anything. But
All right, let's pivot.
Differently.
Let's pivot for 1 second. I want to hear a story about a time one of your team members took a stand for your team culture and what impact that had. Do you guys have a story of a time when one of your team members, Jess, you're nodding, let's hear it.
Yes, I'm like bobbling over here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I have a recent one. I loved this question because it really, really made me think about it, of what could be really viable. So we break our entire team into mini pods every quarter, including the staff, including myself, my husband, Justin, and they have captains. We basically follow the theme of football. So you have captains, you have cheerleaders, coaches, commentary, the whole nine, and players. And one of our top producer was a captain in this particular quarter. And on his team, one of our sales agents who's going through a really tough time in life, major life-changing events during a global pandemic. And like any normal human being, kind of just retracted a bit, right? Wasn't leaning as much into the team and wasn't as accountable. And part of the leadership that we like to invoke and kind of raise the lid of our team from the captain is, no matter what and where people are at, meet them where they're at, right? Do your work, do the work as a leader. And he rightfully admitted that he didn't. So we had the quarterly announcement where the teams landed, who won. His team won, and he got up there as the captain to talk about the experience and what kind of had them winning and what were the resources they pulled on and what he learned as a leader. And instead of taking that win and gloating, he actually stood up and took extreme ownership and said, hey, actually, I did not do my duty as a leader. I did not reach out to everyone on our team, and it was for my own personal reasons of not holding them accountable because of the situations they were in. And had I done that, I think we would have even won bigger. I think everyone would have benefited better. And what I learned is that, leading is not easy. It's only easy when everything's up, right? When everything's up in a market, everyone's happy, everyone's, feeling gleeful. It's really easy to lead. But when basically, and forgive my language, when shit hits the fan, it's not easy to lead. And so he took that and he went on a little bit longer. What the cultural moment was that I really would say is, he took a stand, took extreme ownership, which is a big piece of our culture, is, do your part, do the work, own it, and let's move on. The agent that also was not leaning into accountability and definitely putting the boundaries up there, not surrendering to the team, and being a great team player, what happened next was remarkable. She started leaning in. She took extreme ownership and saying, I also didn't allow you in. I didn't surrender or lean into the team meetings, and I missed them, and I did all of these things. Her production went from nothing to skyrocketing in the next week. She put the hours in, she took the inches, and it was all because she realized the strength of the culture of our team is to lean in and surrender to it, is to say, how am I accountable? How am I showing up not only for myself, but for you guys? Am I allowing you guys to do your job so that we can all persevere? And that was awesome. That was a moment where everyone could have easily just gone, cool, we won, no big deal, let's all move on. But there was, variables there in a deeper moment. And, two people really won big because they were vulnerable and transparent.
I think that's cool. You bring up my next question, which is, what is the hardest part of being a leader and creating or maintaining an incredible culture? What do you think is like the toughest part there? Because a lot of what you touched on is like leadership is hard.
Yeah, I think walking the walk is the hardest part about leadership. I think when you're smart and you have the right mentors in your life, you can say all the right things. You can learn the messaging, you can repeat it, rinse and repeat, but actually showing up as those words, showing up as what you preach and behind the mission that everyone signed up to be a part of is a whole nother ballgame. It's simple things like, would I love to binge watch Netflix with my husband and eat pizza 3 days a week? Hell yes. And that's not a luxury I have in the position and role that I find purpose and joy in. And so I have to make tougher choices, and I have to show up and walk alongside my agents and my staff and give as much borrowed belief as often as possible. Because we're all human and life gets in the way, right? There's reasons and excuses that show up every single day of the week. So it's our job.
I love that term, borrowed belief. I think that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, how many people have seen that team where like the leader wants to get everybody in for lead generation at 8 o'clock in the morning, but the leader's not there, right? And the leaders just absentee all the time while they expect other people to do what they say, but then they don't show that they're willing to put in the effort and lead by example as well. So that's one of the things I think that holds a lot of people back from where they want to go, right? Is they want to be like you. They want to be like a Dan Beer, Lindsay Dodge, right? A Jessica Woodbeck, but they don't realize how much energy, effort, time, accountability, right? The things that really go on a day-to-day basis to run that type of organization. Right? You have to be a totally different person in order to do that.
And the borrowed belief goes with it. I think they want to know it's possible, right? Just like I do. That's why my mentors, right? Dan was just talking about our coach, are just ungodly people, right? We want to know it's possible to get that borrowed belief so that we can go and perform in whatever makes our best life the biggest that it can be for us individually. So that's where I think leadership is it's an immense task to take on.
Yeah. Lindsay, what about you? Do you have a story of a stand for cultural leadership or anything you want to share about what makes this sort of so challenging, or what the most challenging thing of being a leader is in creating that?
I think I'll speak to the second one first. I have a slightly different answer, although I loved yours. I feel like right now, so our culture is very much based on just transparency and authenticity with our agents. And through this year, especially with COVID, it's been this delicate walk, right, between understanding that we need to show up every day with a positive mindset to really push our people through, keep them engaged, keep them excited, and also saying, being transparent, being authentic. Hey, this year's been really hard for all of us. And how do we keep moving forward? How do we get up every day and show up and work hard and not get discouraged? And our market was very fortunate in that we had a very short lag. But what we're a younger company and we didn't go through the 08, the 09. And this year's really been our first really hard times where everyone was freaked out. And we're a very young company. Our agents are mostly young parents with young kids at home, and just learning to support them where they are, and also understand, hey, we're going through the same thing. My daughter's 6. I have all the same problems that you do. So how can we get through this together? And how do we meet them where they are and say, yes, this is challenging. So let's walk hand in hand, get through these challenges, and continue to grow and evolve through all of the changes going on this year.
Very cool. My next question is, why would someone leave your team? What do you do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly? What do you do to prevent that from happening? But how do people end up leaving your team, and what do you do about it in order to make sure it doesn't happen?
So we're going through kind of a weird transition right now in that we are both an independent brokerage and a team, and we started as a team. And what we were finding is, so we're in a relatively low cost of living area. Our average price point is about $275. And If you make $100,000 here, that's a lot of money. The average family in our area makes about $50,000 or $60,000. So we were finding that, people would get to where they were making, double the median income, and they just felt like, you know what, I can work not as hard and do less units and be an individual agent. Or why am I working so hard? I'm getting complacent. So one of the things that we've layered on is we have the opportunity for agents to go independent, and we're building up that bench in the team. But then the other thing is just culture. So we usually, if somebody leaves the organization and doesn't just kind of graduate from being on our team to being independent, it's because we thought they were the right person and they just weren't. They're all about the money. They're all about the splits. They're flashy, which just isn't us. We're just not that type of lifestyle. And they didn't fit in. They wanted to go discount, or they wanted to go somewhere where it was just all about the money. And usually they don't end up netting more after they leave.
All right. Jess, Dan, you guys want to answer that?
Repeat the question for me.
Yeah. Why would someone leave your team? And what do you do to sort of prevent that from happening with the ones that you want to keep, right? You don't want to keep everybody, but we've all had that where somebody comes into your office and they're like, hey, we need to talk. And it's one of those people that like you love, right? Like maybe they're not the right fit for your team. Maybe in the back of your head, that maybe they'll be leaving one day or whatever, but like emotionally, right? It's hard to say goodbye to some of these people. So how has that happened? Why would somebody leave? And what do you do to kind of prevent that?
So first of all, none of us prevent it forever. Okay. So when someone leaves, and it's okay. It's going to happen at some point. It's not to say I don't care and that I don't have tons in place to try to make it really unappealing or less likely. Of course I do. And I can talk a while on all those different things, from our level system to, we could talk on it for a long time. At its core, why do I think most people, if we want to kind of readjust the answer a bit to why do people leave most teams? Most of the time when someone leaves a team, let's say prematurely, everyone's going to have their date. Okay. When someone leaves prematurely, before they really should have, and before it really was their time, they feel disconnected. They just simply feel disconnected from either the team itself, the team leader, the folks on this call. We've forgotten to care, not just about their sales and not just about their numbers and not just about their contacts, but we've forgotten to ask about their kids. We've forgotten to ask about what their wife or husband's going through. We've forgotten to just sit down and have a drink and talk about, whatever sports team you're both in. We've forgotten to do those things. And it's typically going to be an issue around connection when it's a premature departure. I think everyone has their date, right? And maybe hopefully some of my people's dates are like 20 years from now, but there's still a date somewhere.
That's good. No, I appreciate that. I think it's a really unique perspective to say that everyone has their date. I don't hear that. And I think if leaders can get comfortable with that idea, whether it be 20 years in the future or whatever, we all think of this ideal of having someone join our team and stay forever. And yet eventually, like I think in MREA, they even say like the worst thing would be that someone joins your team and is a failure and never goes on to anything, right? Ultimately, you want to be proud of the careers that you've launched or the other people that have succeeded that might not continue to be at your organization. So I really love that. And
now, what that all boils down to quickly, John, is regardless of how you want to put it, a premature departure.
Right.
Actually, you know what? Even a mature departure, even the date, if the date ever comes, because my job is actually to continue to build opportunity in. So just if the agent reaches their ceiling, like the Truman Show, we watched that movie, Jim Carrey, and he's in this bubble world, but he doesn't realize that he's living his life. He's just fine. But the day, first things started getting weird and you didn't kind of know what it was. And that's when our agents are just starting to have like thoughts and they don't understand, it's just starting to percolate. But then one day he reached over and he realized that there was a wall, right? Or a ceiling, or like he reached the border. And so that was us like the producers of the Truman Show failed to expand that world a little bit further for him. And so as soon as we fail to do that, that's when the mature like date comes. But so ultimately, whether it's a mature departure or a premature departure, it still boils down to you, and it's never them. And it's never, it's, oh, they don't work. They don't this, they don't appreciate, they don't, that. You suck at interviewing, and you suck at being real, and you suck at like talking to them about what's going to be what and setting expectations. And it's always you. It's always you. You didn't build in enough opportunity. And by the way, that might be fine. It might be, hey, once you get here, so happy for you, and I'll help you go there. And, that's part of what we've structured, and we'll partner with them, and we'll do all kinds of great stuff. But it is ultimately you.
I love it. I think all of you seem to be in agreement that you sort of have this like transition plan for agents to be able to still work with you in some capacity, but to be able to move on and become a solo agent if they want, or partner with you or whatever. So I think that's a really interesting topic we can dig into.
John, you were just in San Diego with me, and you came to a mastermind, and we had this whole thing, and in the group was 3 of my former team members.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a cool thing.
It's something that I think more teams need to pay attention to, which is like what is the evolution of the people who leave my team? How do I not lose all of the energy, effort, relationship, everything I poured into these people? How can this continue to live on in a different form or fashion, rather than just, hey, you left my team, you're dead to me. Right? Let's block you on all social media. Let's make sure you pay me the referral fees on the 6 people that you stole from my database and all that other stuff, right? Like what does it look like, life after team, right? I think that could be an entire panel, a whole discussion. All right, guys, you've been amazing. I'm going to wrap it up with one final question. Give me a nice, short, sweet, succinct answer. I'm just curious. You guys are all mega superstars and so successful. I want to know, what keeps you up at night? Jessica, you can go first.
I mean, perfect segue. How to grow our world big enough where talented people feel fulfilled and a sense of belonging forevermore, whatever that means, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, how to just continue to grow for the awesome people we get to work with.
Nice. Lindsay, what about you? What keeps you up at night?
Wanting to make sure that we're always adaptable and always innovating.
Nice. Dan, I'll let you have the last word.
Gosh, I sleep pretty good.
That's so fair.
Hey, Christy, I just saw you. How are you? Look, as it relates to the business, I guess it is from time to time. If I'm up at night, it's when I have a relationship that's important to me on the team, with a staff member, an agent, a support person, anybody that I know is strained due to my own fault, due to my negligence or having overlooked something, made them feel unappreciated. When I impact them like that negatively, maybe I'm moving too fast, I'm not paying attention, I forget that not everyone has the same love language, they need different things from me, and it's my job to adapt to them versus them to me. When I strain a relationship like that, I don't sleep well at night. I make a very early phone call, and I have to talk to them, and then I suddenly breathe easy, and everything's awesome and everything's great. Sometimes it improves a relationship if you step toward your problem. You have to step right into your problems, go toward them, not away from them. Otherwise they get worse.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate all 3 of you. I think we got a ton of really awesome nuggets out of that. Next, we are going to go into breakout rooms. So we'll just take like a 2-minute break if everybody wants to run to the restroom or anything else. If anybody has a question, we'll leave these guys on for a minute. Feel free to pop your question in the chat or unmute yourself and ask them. And in 5 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and move us all to our breakout rooms, and we're going to discuss cultural leadership with Sheena, myself, and Kristen Francis as moderators / mastermind assistants. Anybody got a question for these guys? Somebody does. Somebody's calling Dan, lifting his phone. That's just another seller lead. Don't worry. Anyone? Questions? You guys got all that you wanted out of these guys? All right, I'm gonna let him go. Thanks again, guys. You've been
Thank
awesome.
you.
Well, appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
I was thinking about my question for Dan. I know he's got a large, 15 people on his ops team. I don't know if he's still here.
Yeah. Dan, you still
He's
here?
still
Yeah.
here?
You
I'm
should.
gonna let him
Oh,
know.
hey. Okay. So I guess my question is, you have all these people who are there to support your agents, and you said that bringing on a new agent would create just a drain on the organization, or I don't know if you meant on yourself. Is that because you're personally training? Do you feel like maybe the training, maybe it's just not made to help a new agent? And if that's the case, I guess sort of what I found is it doesn't matter if they've done 20 or 40. I hired somebody who'd done like 50 deals a year on a different team, and it wasn't necessarily like training a new agent, but
Oh, yeah.
still
Yeah.
went through the same training because it's our team and it's different.
Yeah. So, look, I'm not saying one new agent's a drain. I'm saying for us, 8 new agents is, if maybe we're bad at it. I don't know. Maybe that's it, right? But if 8 new agents, if we can pull 2 of them into being like regular strong contribute, that would probably be a big win. So I would just prefer better ratios. But you're 100% right. It doesn't matter how many transactions they've done. They still have to have a degree of a large degree of training on our way of doing things. They don't know how we manage our CRM. They don't know, how we work our team, and at what point in the nurture cycle do they keep the relationship versus it goes to the ISAs. They don't know how to just let go and let the operations team do what they do. There's a ton of training that has to happen in terms of our way of doing things. And that's not anything related to how many transactions they've done. But it is really nice. I mean, when you hire a new agent, you go like, holy shit, I didn't even think of that. Like, they don't know how to log into the MLS. Like those things, that's where I would prefer not to be, unless I just really see someone that's a shining star. Like more than just, hey, they were great. Like really, really someone awesome. Whenever my sales manager hires one of them, I ask him like 15 questions. I make sure so anyway, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Well, I think you said something that was, we always talk about KW. Were you at KW at some point? No.
I was at KW for a couple of years. I left in February of 2018.
Okay. So you know the lingo and the quotes, and we say like, you can't compare. I know that's taken from somewhere else too, but you can't compare your insides to other people's outsides.
Yeah.
I mean, you're bringing on 8 people at a time. What's that?
Is that a bold law? Sounds like a bold law.
I think so. I've never done bold, but maybe. But I think that you just said that sometimes, like if you bring on 8 agents, like I'm not ever bringing on 8 agents. I'm bringing 1 or 2. So I can see if I'm bringing 8 people, that would be complete chaos. So you're coming from kind of a different foundation, I guess.
I don't know that we've ever had 8 agents on like in the same onboarding moment, but if you hired, 3 and then you hired 4 and then you hired 1, like the 3 originals are still on trying to figure out how to log into the MLS, and like the 4 don't know how to get into car forms, right? Like that's like our zip forms. And it's just, look, what's the success rate in our industry? I don't know. It's probably less than 5%. So if we do 5 times better, it's 25%.
Yeah.
I just prefer to play with higher odds. You run into the issues where you have to get rid of bad habits and all those things, but and it's totally valid. And both ways are so legit. We've just found there's a very, very strong correlation. I've been doing this for enough years that I can just tell you very strong correlation from we hired X amount of agents and they were new. How did our sales change? To we hired X amount of agents that knew what the heck they were doing, at least like knew their way around the industry, but just needed a far better support structure, came with no ego, realized the sign in the yard is going to be our team sign, not their photo, all the right amount of screening. But when we get those people and we bring 8 of those on and we see what happens to our sales, it's like, oh shit, we sell more homes now. We just like, boom, we sell more homes now. So I prefer that.
Can I ask you what your ratio of male to female agents are?
I don't know the answer, but it's going to be like a reasonable margin from 50-50. It's like
okay.
probably whatever society is. I don't know.
Like 50-50. Okay.
We
That's
started
rare
off
too.
as a fraternity. I mean, we started off as like a football team in a room, super smelly, like really very, very heavy male. And if anything, if I had to make a guess, I'd guess we have more females today.
I have found that teams that are kind of like focused where you are just trying to find the right people to get stuff closed, maybe not, you're not able to take that person who wants to do, 500, 700,000 plus, because I think we have a similar price point. I don't know, we've been able to hire more women to that structure.
All right, I'm going to cut you guys off. We're going to jump in our breakout rooms now, but you guys are in the same room. So Dan, if you want to hang out for a minute, you can finish that up with Sheena.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. You've all been invited to join.
It looks like.
Let me know if you can't do that or see that.
Oh, guys, I'm so sorry.
Anyone? Breakout rooms? No. Hey guys, how's it going? Got some people in here. Let's see if we can figure this out. 4 participants, everyone's going to their breakout rooms, I think. All right, how's it going, guys?
Fearless leader.
What?
Fearless leader, here we are. We've got a handful of people that have their mics off. All right, no worries. If you guys are driving or naked or something, don't turn your cameras on. But if you are not, please join us, Kim and Angela and Jackie and whoever else. All right, so what did you guys think so far? We've got Lindsay joining us, and she was amazing. There's Jackie. She's snacking or something. Hi.
Yes. Having lunch.
That's fine. Lunch is good. We all need to eat. How's everybody doing? Good. All right, so let's start. What was your biggest takeaway? Let's hear some ahas that you guys got out of that panel. And let's just start with Lindsay. What'd you learn from your fellow panelists?
Yeah, so I really liked Dan's Genesis, Hyundai versus Tesla comparison. I think that a lot of us probably did that and didn't realize it, had a small little group of really high quality people and kind of built from there. So I really liked that. And I liked that he's upfront about, hey, we have really bad splits, because we kind of have bad splits in our market too. But I feel like we provide the most value and services too. So being upfront rather than trying to sell somebody over that.
Yeah, I love that. What else? Anybody want to share an aha? Lauren, is that your hand, or was that just a coincidence? Oh, Joe, go ahead.
I loved what Dan said about the premature departure versus mature departure. I thought, and they're always going to leave. So, I mean, I just like that. Really just is really good.
Have you ever heard anybody talk like that before? Like, I've never heard anyone get to a place where they were comfortable with just the fact, like the reality that like people don't stay with you forever. Like, I don't know. I'm just in this like love moment of like, oh, well, like at least this one person won't ever leave me, right? Like all the other ones have left, but I've still got this one person. And then what do we do, right? We do this whole like 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, right? We've got like, I can't tell you how many iterations of my team I've had. And I've done the 15 person, we're all going to San Francisco, let's carpool, no admin, like torture fest, right? I've done that. I've done the, admin heavy with only like 2 agents. I've tried it all. But at the end of the day, like the one consistency is that I'm the only consistency. Right? Like everyone is fluid. I don't know. Anybody want to share on that? Like Lindsay, what's your experience with the everyone is going to leave me someday thing?
So we've gotten to the point where we used to be really emotionally invested in every single agent. Not that we aren't. I love our agents. But I feel like we've kind of gotten to the point where we really try to invest in our staff as much as possible because they are the keepers of the culture, and everybody else we need to bring in who fits in. We're not, I don't know. We kind of, they're our pillar, they're our core, and then we try to attract other people who fit within that model, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. Anybody else? Megan, you gotta-
It was helpful for me because I'm in the hiring process right now, as you know, that not to be so tied to the people. I need to hire someone forever, and that I can hire someone for, you know, a couple of really good years and build something really good, and then just like it's just not a forever thing. And I think that's what I've been kind of scared of, is like, what if they leave me someday? But they will.
What if they don't leave you, right? Like what if
Or
they,
what if they don't?
what if they just like suck and they just like hang around forever, just like,
And I leave
Megan,
them.
give me more leads, Megan, brush my hair, Megan, help, like, right? Like that would be like the bigger tragedy, right? Is these like leeches that just stick on you forever, that drain you and don't provide value. So yeah, I don't know, that's my 2 cents.
I'm curious, and maybe I missed it, or it was just a back.
Oops, that's okay. Jackie first, then Lauren.
Okay, so I'm curious, and maybe it was just like the back end of you getting the beer guy to talk to you, but he mentioned that you did a roundtable and he had several people there that were no longer on his team but still work with him. What capacity is that happening? Like, I'm just curious if you could just lean into that for 5 seconds.
Yeah, no, you asked the magic question. So the benefit of our model at EXP is that when someone leaves you, if they're in your revenue share group, you guys can still be partners. And so Dan has, you know, built in, and Lindsay, I think you can probably speak to this too, right? I'm sure that with your own independent brokerage, right? What it allows is it allows you to go from being team members to being partners, but there's still a financial incentive between the two, and there's still the incentive to share your playbook and your resources and your systems and things like that. And so it's the difference between, like, when we're on a team, let's say we split everything 50-50. But I'm going to pay for all the admin and this and that and whatever. But then in the more independent model, it's like, I'm not going to pay for your admin and I'm not going to pay for your leads, but I am still going to be here to support you and provide value to you and do all these other things, right? Lindsay, how do you guys do it when somebody transitions out of your team?
So I feel like we may even have a somewhat similar answer, even though it's a totally different model. So we're not EXP, we're our own independent brokerage, and we started as a team. And now we're also doing investments and ancillary businesses with our agents too. So we kind of have 3 different like categories you can put people in. So of course, most of our brokerage is on our team. So that's a traditional team, like most of you guys probably have. You know, they're on whatever split, they're getting the admin, they're getting the leads, all of that. Once our agents get to about 50 units, we find that they start to shop us around, and we don't have great splits. Our agents make a lot of money, but we don't necessarily have the best splits on the independent or on the team. So when we went indie, we developed just a regular, in our market, it's competitive with like a Keller Williams or an EXP type capping program for independent agents. They're still able to, they're totally plugged in culturally. We really almost need to rename our team something else, because our whole company is our team, so to speak. We just have agents who are on the original team that get more services for a lower split, and then we have people who get less services for a higher split. But in terms of training, in terms of fun time, culture, all of that, we're all under one umbrella. So then they're able to net more. And now what we're starting to experience is I'm helping a few of our top producers develop their own teams. So it's just this extra really cool opportunity to watch the people that we developed from brand new agents become leaders of their own with their own employees and their own agents. And that's been new this year, and it's really exciting to me. But it's the same thing that everybody's saying, just creating whatever it looks like, creating more new opportunities for your agents. Because if you don't, they'll outgrow you. If they're talented, they will outgrow you unless you put out more opportunities.
And with that, I think it's like the Parker Group, and then it's the Parker Group Plus, right? So like they're a
Whatever
part
you want
of,
to call it. Yeah.
right.
We're-
Yeah. But like,
We're taking applications for good names, so send
okay,
them in.
well, don't use mine. That was garbage. But that's the theory. And I think that you guys, the rest of you are at KW. Is that correct? Is anybody not at KW out of the remainder of the group? So the more that these other models, these independents and EXP and other companies offer this multi-tier system, the more I think that people at KW need to start thinking about this more of like, what are the options, right? Because if somebody wants to come to my team, there's like 3 different ways we can get into business together. There's just as, they can join my revenue share group and they don't pay me anything, but these are the benefits they get. And then if they want to come on my team and then this is what they're going to get. And then if they want, to have additional leads or whatever it is, that's a different split. And so I think some teams are thinking of it from the more you sell, the more you keep model, right? They compensate their agents by saying, hey, once you hit 10 sales, you bump up to a different tier of commission split or whatever that is. But that's just a competition on cost, right? That's just a price conversation. If you start it in reverse with the value, it's like menus, right? Like, do you want the all you can eat buffet or do you want just the a la carte version, right? And so it's something to think about for sure for different teams. What else? Ahas, or actually, let's go back to Lauren Conrad, who has the most famous name of the bunch here. What did you have to say, Lauren?
I'm the original Lauren Conrad. So I'm new to real estate and I'm new to my team. We're a small team. But some of the ahas for me just listening in really was founded around the discussion on culture. And I forget who said it, but being new, they hire people whether they were in real estate or not, but just really understanding and having that self-awareness as a group or a team as who you are, so they can really kind of carry that value proposition through every hire, every activity, every process, so that everybody who is part of that team really understands, where we're driving to. And then I think it feeds back to the discussion of, who's appropriate on the team, who's not. I forget which person said it, but they're like, look, this is who we are. They obviously very much understand who they are as a team. If that doesn't align with your culture, then you need to go to whoever down the street. So
yeah,
that was really
I think getting clarity, right, is really important. And you may have to turn your video off and just have your audio on, because I think your bandwidth is low.
Can you still hear me? Is there a
Yeah,
delay?
we can hear you. I could get that, but basically just getting really clear on who you're looking for. Sharon, I know you guys have had a lot of fun turmoil over the years in terms of identifying who you're really looking for and who you're fighting for and who you want to keep and who might not be a fit. Do you want to speak to that at all, Sharon, about sort of your path to get to where you are today, which I think is better, right? More clarity on who's on the boat, right?
Yeah, ever evolving, I should say. I think like what we were talking about before with the premature departure and mature departure, I think that's kind of like we've just said recently, we would rather have talent for a short amount of time than have non-talent for a long time. So thinking about it that way, and some of the other things like what Megan was talking about, not looking for that forever. Also, we're trying different things as far as when somebody, I don't know who said it, talked about they don't look for real estate experience, they look for a high S. That's actually something that I've been trying, and I'm trying to talk my husband, who's with Sheena and Sheena's group, trying to basically show him the value, because we get these agents that just got licensed and they have this preconceived notion of what real estate life is really like. And it's not like that at all.
Does anyone run into the $1 million listing effect, right? Where too much HGTV, too much $1 million listing, right? They think that it's just sports cars and fancy, houses, and they don't understand the work behind it or the
And the
process or the
you
integrity.
know, let me go out there on my own. And it's kind of like, you know, letting your 16-year-old drive and they've never got behind the car before. It's like, I know you want to, and I know it's exciting, but you've got to learn some background and rules and things like that. So, and we've actually utilized what you were talking about with other agents. We've had agents on our team that have left. Either they left or we said, hey, this probably isn't a good fit for you. And one of the agents that was on our team, she's actually one of my huge, like right now we've got so many buyer leads that we don't have the buyer agents to cover. So we know we can refer them to her and they're going to be taken care of. They're not going to go anywhere. And she's loyal to the fact that no one, you know, the mouth that what is it? The hand that feeds you.
Yeah, something like that.
But so that's worked out really well for us.
Has anyone played around with the idea of like more of a salary compensation model with their team members? Lindsay, let's hear it.
Yes. So that's a 2021 goal for us. So right now my husband is actually getting his real estate license so he can be our guinea pig. Obviously he won't literally be a W-2, but we're going to set him up in that type of environment and test it. I think that for us to keep our retained commission and our profit margins where we want them to be, as we grow and we evolve, it's the only path forward.
Where do you want them to be? Give us some idea of the percentages or the numbers.
Yeah, so we'll do 3.1 million GCI this year, and we would like to keep around that 35% profit margin without being in production, and we're still in production. So as we evolve out, we need to hire a salaried listing agent to make that happen.
It's really hard, right?
Yeah.
To keep the profit margins high. Like this is why I talk about like you can have the lowest splits in the industry, right? Like let's say Dan's splits are 70-30. Well, that 30% is still profit.
Yeah, they're netting the same percent that we are without the headache.
So why the hell am I risking my life, right? Do you guys, Lindsay, do you you own your building or do you lease it?
We own our building outright.
Okay, perfect. So at one point, did you lease a building?
Yep. So we leased we were a team within a brokerage and we were the biggest team. We were about 80% of that company's production. So at that point we got free office space. And then when we went indie, we leased a building while this building was under construction, which was supposed to be a 6-month project and was a 2-year project.
So, I mean, think about it, right? You have the overhead, you have the staff, the salaries, the lease, you have all this stuff that you're taking on the liability for, and then you're keeping the same amount as these people who, especially when they're not a fit, right? When they're not a cultural fit, like, it makes you want to smack them, right? When they're taking, especially if your splits are like 50-50 or super generous. I know some people who give 70-30 splits to their agents. And it's like, how do you do that and continue to grow a successful business at scale? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So yeah, I think that's cool. And I think I'd love to hear more about how that transition goes. I think, the case with Uber right now, are you guys following what's going on with Uber in California? So basically they made it so that Uber and Lyft, they have to pay their employees as employees. They can't have them be independent contractors right now. And I don't think real estate agents do not pass the test of being an independent contractor in their relationship with their brokerage alone, because you're not allowed to work for multiple brokerages. Like no brokerages will allow you to have your license hung at multiple brokers.
In Delaware, you can.
What?
In Delaware, you can. It's pretty common.
Okay, cool. So like in California, that almost never happens. And so we really do kind of become employees in that regard. And I think the employment law for the country is pretty clear that if you tell somebody where to be and how to be there and what to do and use my computer and do this and that, right? That's an employee. And so I think we need to look more and more at what does it look like? I know at this roundtable we were at, I met some great people. If you don't follow the Glutch group out of Arizona, you guys need to check that out. John Glutch is crazy smart. Everybody on his team is an employee. He's lived in San Diego for the last 6 years and they did like 1.7 million GCI in Arizona. And he's not even there. And everyone on his team is an employee. and they do some really cool things. One of the cool things they do, I loved this, I wanted to share this, but Dan talked over me because he's an egomaniac. No, just kidding. When they take someone from their team out of their home, let's say they take them to a conference or an event or whatever it is, they send flowers to that person's spouse that say, thanks for letting us borrow your husband or wife for the event, right? So they're really caring for the couple, like the entire person, right? They're doing some things that are super cool. And then they're providing healthcare benefits and 401k and all these other things that I think will really drive the retention, right? And you look at every other business in the world, even businesses with salespeople, right? There's lots of businesses out there that have salespeople, and how many of them pay for them as an employee and treat them as such, right? I think there's a lot of value there. All right, guys, what else do you want to talk about? What other ahas do you have? Or my favorite question on here is like, what keeps you up at night? So do you guys you want to share anything that keeps you up at night that we might be able to mastermind on and solve for you guys? Sharon doesn't. Just kidding.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I know you've got a bunch going on. Anyone want to share?
I have a maps coach call at 2:30, so I was like, you know what? I'm trying to wait till the very last minute to be able to get off and get on that coach call.
No worries. Totally understand. What other ahas did you guys have? Joe, did you get anything else out of the panel? I know you're kind of building your team out still, right?
John, I want to go back if nobody else has something to add. I want to go back to your talk about retention and different ways to stay, like, since we're talking to mostly Keller Williams agents, I was KW and I loved KW, and the only reason I left was for a new opportunity. But I don't think that you have to. I think that you can evolve within that organization and still have really good retention and still have flexibility while having a team, without being your own brokerage and without going to a different type of model. And basically there are two things that we've done in the past and currently that fit within that model. And one is we had kind of two parts to our team before we went indie. We had cool names for them. I thought they were cool. Everybody else maybe not. But we called them the ninjas, and I forget what the other name was. But basically, we almost had a team within the team. So we had really high service, lower split, and then we had something that you could grow into. And basically, you didn't have the leads, and you kept the same admin. I don't remember the details. It's been probably a couple years now. But basically, we built two teams within the team so that if somebody did feel like, I'm getting most of my business repeat referral now, we gave them somewhere to grow that was still part of the team. And we didn't lose them to somewhere else. We kept them. We just kept them with slightly different services and gave them an opportunity to grow. The other thing that we're starting to do now is we're in a market, and you may or may not be, where flipping is still something that if we can find the property off market, it's a very profitable thing to do. We're offering, we started what's called Investor University, where agents can bring us a deal. And if they bring us a deal and the numbers make sense, we let them invest at whatever percentage they are able to and are comfortable doing. And as long as the deal makes sense, we will come up to whatever that gap is. If they've got 20%, we'll do 80. If they've got 50, we'll do 50, blah, blah, blah. And then we split the profits based on percent ownership. Something that is on our radar that we haven't found the right property for yet is that we're also willing to purchase a good rental property with an agent. We'll formulate an LLC, and then our LLC will own part, their LLC will own part. We would be a controlling partner in that situation. We want to make sure that we're the decision makers, but it gives people an opportunity to build passive income, even if they only have $10,000, $20,000, maybe not $200,000 to get into. Just different ideas.
I really love that. So one thing that is really common that I heard at this mastermind is this idea of wealth building and this idea of investing together, doing flips together. It can become its entirely own separate business. It can actually become bigger than your primary business. And so if you guys aren't figuring out ways to source flips, if you're not having other agents at other brokerages, people in your community, whatever it is, if you don't have something built around wealth building, flips, investing in properties, whatever it is, I really really encourage you to look into that. I can connect you with a few people doing it at a high level. Lindsay sounds like she's doing it amazing. It's a huge component. A lot of these teams are doing these wealth building Fridays where they will talk to their people about budgets and saving money and 401ks and the stock market and all these different things, right? Because it's not just about how much GCI did I make? How much profit did I take home? It's about how do I take the dollars that are left over at the end of the transaction and put them to work for me so that one day I don't have to sell houses forever. Because I think we all get into this game thinking like, oh, I'm going to make a bunch of money and become an investor and do this or that. And then how many people are still on the same treadmill 20 years later, 25 years later? And if you can create a path towards wealth for your agents that is tied intrinsically to the team that you, right, you're helping create this, the chances that they leave you, well, number one, like they'll graduate, right? But they won't leave you, because you guys will still be business partners in other things. They'll still want to take advantage of some of those things. And that's a really creative value add that just pads your bottom line with profit. It doesn't cost you anything extra. It's a driver of your profitability, and it's a retention tool. So I think it's really, really powerful. All right, I am going to close all the rooms and bring us back together. And they will close in 57 seconds. Let's leave it. We are all going to return here in just 1 second. I don't know why you are spotlighted, Lindsay, but your logo looks good. So I'll spotlight myself for a second to get you off the hot seat. And we're bringing everybody back right now. Lindsay, I actually will put you back on the spotlight really quick. You had just talked about that. So tell us again really quickly about what you're doing in terms of wealth building for your teams to create other opportunities for them.
Sure. So wealth building is a huge part of our culture and just what we do for our agents. It's not just about what you make, it's about what you keep. So something that we have started doing recently is we launched a program called Investor University. And what that allows our agents to do is partner with us through a flip or a rental. If they bring us an opportunity, as long as the numbers make sense, it's something we would buy on our own for ourselves if given the opportunity. We allow them to do the project with us. So on the flip side, we've got a couple of those going now. They'll actually bring it to us. We draw up the paperwork with our attorney. They're actually a percent owner based on the percent money that they're investing in the project. And then we will cover the rest. Christy, we have 2 going right now. They're our first 2 for this project. And we created this because it's a retention tool. It's also an extra profit center for us, and it's a profit center for them. It's not necessarily the best money-making opportunity for us because we could go out and we could do it on our own, right? So we're doing all of the logistical work. We're picking the contractors, we're managing the project, but it's a huge value add for them. It's a huge value add for retention and for culture. So if they come to us, they find this great deal and they have $20,000 to invest, great, whatever percentage that ends up being of the cost of the project, that's the percent that they own and the percent of the profits they'll get through the project. And then we'll cover up to 100% of the rest. They also get to be the agent on the deal. So in many cases, they'll do, from a percentage standpoint, they'll do as well as we do, even though we're managing the project, because they get the commission and they get their percent that they put into it.
Can they roll their theoretical commission into it up front if they don't have the capital?
That's a really good idea and not something we've ever thought about, and I'm writing that down. That's a really good idea.
I'm glad I can help you with that. Waive the commission and roll it in and then allow them to take a bigger stake as well. So I think that'd be cool. All right, who else has an aha from their mastermind group that would like to share? Anybody want to grab? I'm going to take my spotlight off too. Unmute yourself and share if something out of your mastermind really stood out to you, or you want to share, give somebody props on what they talked about. Not all at once. I will pick on you if I have to.
I was excited that John White, famous John White, joined our group and already dropped some knowledge on us.
Yeah. What did he share?
Yeah, so one of the things we were talking about is the difference in pay between agents or leadership or salespeople versus people in the field. Well, his is in the field versus ours are ops people. And those people processing those checks, the people who know how much the agents are making. And, you know, how do we prepare for kind of sort of maybe a negative response on that or questions around that. And he said that he does the research beforehand. They're proactive about knowing how much someone in that role typically makes in their area and being able to share that information. So if they are making less than that, why is that? If they're making more, why is that? If they're making exactly what is normal for that area, why is that? So they're ready to have those conversations.
That's cool. Kristen Francis, I'm going to pick on you. What came out of your mastermind? Tell me one smart thing that you guys came up with that we should all know about.
Well, we decided if you haven't had like a Gary Keller moment or a mass exodus, then you really haven't made it, and you have to wait for your team to implode to really learn that lesson. But on our way to avoiding that, figuring out how to actually define your culture so that you can measure against it. So we talked about different ways to do that. And also doing an audit of where you are if you were to hold up the culture of your team as a measuring stick, where do you fall in that, in living your values?
Very cool.
But really, you got to wait for your team to implode.
Sure, absolutely. All right, so I am now going to pass it over to Sheena. Sheena, you still here? Yeah, I'm going to spotlight you. Why don't you go ahead and introduce Mr. John White, and please remind everybody what we're raising money for today and how they can contribute.
Thank you. So John White is here again. I forget the title, so you know I was going to forget something. What's John, can you remind me of your title?
I call myself a gopher, but my official title is Vice President of Talent and Business Strategy. Vice
President of Talent and Business Strategy. And it is an electric company, not the biggest electric company. Well, now you said that you've doubled the size of the business. So is it now the biggest electric company in Nashville or not?
We're the biggest in our market, yeah.
Wow, yeah. So the biggest electric firm in the market. And John he was a surprise. We didn't know what to expect, I'll say, at our last mastermind. And a good friend of ours, David Huffaker, suggested we reach out to him to talk about culture and what that means to him and his organization. And so we had this wonderful talk about, having 100% responsibility for yourselves, like having that sort of embedded into your culture. And John Pugh gave that quote recently. Great culture is what? On a mission. What was it, John?
The right people on a mission
together. Yes. I love that. I posted it again in the Facebook group. So I'm super excited to hear from John. He just had another speaking engagement earlier today, showed us a book, Applied Empathy. So if he's working off of that book, I think everyone should probably go out and purchase it. So John has a big family, and one of the children in his family was able to take advantage of Blade Runner amputee in Nashville. They provide, grants for these prosthetics for runners. So that's who we're raising money for today. If you get anything out of this, you haven't yet bought a ticket, please Venmo me the Facebook. In the Facebook group, you will see my Venmo. Venmo me the donation you'd like to give to Blade Runners, and we will tally it all up and send it on behalf of Messy Middle. We really want to support that organization on behalf of John. He's giving his time today and tomorrow, and we're so grateful. So without further ado, John White, I'll let you take the floor.
All right. Thank you. So I appreciate the introduction, and I spend a lot of time at Stans Electric today. My background before that, just as a brief introduction, is I spent almost 10 years at Assurion, which is in the wireless technology space, and then at Dell Computer before that, and Marriott Hotels. And so I went from big, huge corporate America to really small, family-owned organization, and best transition of my life. Hope to never end up back in a huge organization again. What I'm going to do is, I hope this is okay. I know that I checked in, I was in a breakout room, a mastermind group there, and I saw 2 or 3 hands went up of people that were in Nashville. And I want to talk about leadership over the next 2 days. And we're really going to define leadership. And I hope to give you some tools to use. And as I was processing this over the last couple of weeks, my challenge of talking about leadership is that I've got to talk about culture first. And the reason that is because I think that if you have a poor culture or an undefined culture, I don't think it matters how good of a leader you are, because your culture will just eat everything else. So for those of y'all in Nashville, bear with me a little bit. The other thing is, if you didn't pick up in the first time in Nashville, I kind of go off the cuff a lot. Like, I didn't have a lot of slides, and I just kind of anecdotally talk. And so if I repeat myself a lot from Nashville, I apologize. I don't really remember what all I said. And so I don't remember what all I touched on, but is that okay with everybody? Can we get a little thumbs up that I see is 6 or 7? All right, cool. We'll have a good time. If you have a question, pop it in the chat. I've got the chat open, and I'll just stop in it. We'll talk about it right then. Or if we're going to get to it, then we'll get to it. The other thing is that I've taken a couple of different pieces of segments that I do, and I've melded them together. And in an hour and a half, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to stop, because it depends on the conversation. It depends on how it flows. So I don't have like a clean break built in. So we may just pause at like a cliffhanger, and then that way you'll come back tomorrow. Or we may pause at, the most awesome break point ever. Either way, it will be completely unprepared and not planned. Make it a huge cliffhanger. All right, I'm on, John. See, John, I like John because he knows how to spell his name. He doesn't put an H in there. All right, let's pop this up here, and let's see if we can share this thing here really fast. All right, John, I'm going to use you as my confirmation. Can you see that PowerPoint?
I can. It looks great.
All right, perfect.
I'm just tickled pink that we were able to get that on the first try.
How about that, right? It's almost
Wow.
like we meant to do it. So let me kind of dive into some of this stuff, and then we're going to kick back out and get to culture a little bit, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to look at what is leadership in 2020, and then we're going to talk about the leader's window and the leader's mirror. Those are two tools that I think that leaders need to understand very clearly, and if they don't, then I think that they're really in trouble with themselves. And so we're gonna define what those two things are. So words are important, right? So what is leadership? And if you think about it, what does Merriam-Webster say leadership is, right? I am totally just kidding. People are absolutely the starting point. They are the most important. How oftentimes do we get too distracted with deals, or we get too distracted with in your world, the showings aren't ready, or the market's adjusting, or somebody stole my sign, or whatever it is, or we get too hung up on regulations and rules and all those things, and we forget that there's people, right? And so who am I? Oh, you know what I didn't do? Hold on. I was wondering why it was looking weird. I didn't click that button. There we go. All right. So who am I? I'm a couple of things to a couple of people. And so most importantly, I'm a father, and I'm a father to a really big family. And so I'm going to introduce you to them. So there they are. This is my beautiful wife, Andrea. Can you see my mouse? I can't see John anymore. Let's see. The Parker group, the ladies of the Parker group. Can you see my mouse moving around or no? All right, perfect. There we go. All right, so this is Andrea. This is my wife. This is my oldest daughter, Caitlin, my middle daughter, Riley, and my youngest biological daughter, Grayson. And then the rest of this brood are the rest of our children. And so I'm going to go in order of age. So Christopher, and all of them have been adopted from China, and we just make up the big motley crew. So this is Christopher, and this is Natalie, and this is Sam, and this is Molly, and Zach. And so there are 10 of us, and we make up our little own Brady bunch here just outside of Nashville. This young lady here is Leah, and Leah is equally in our picture and in our life. So if you see Molly holding a ladybug, in China, the ladybug is a sign of like hope. And so we adopted Leah, and she had several severe medical conditions and survived open heart surgery, and then went into cardiac arrest one morning, and we the hospital wasn't able to help at that point. So she is waiting on us, and but she is very much a part of kind of who we are. Who else am I? I refer to myself often as a plebe. So a plebe is when you go to West Point, your first year, they call you a plebe. And if you go to West Point, you're probably one of three things. You're a great athlete, you're really, really smart, or your parent is a high ranking military official. And so what that usually means, if we think in the law of averages, it usually means you also have a gigantic ego. And so they call you a plebe because they break you down to nothing your first year. They treat you at low as low. And what they're really teaching you how to do is they're teaching you how to follow before they teach you how to lead. So I know John likes nuggets, and I know that I remember in the session in Nashville, and John, I hope you do it here too. I hope you chime in and pipe up. I mean, it was one of my favorite sessions ever, and you and your team really made it great. But here's your first nugget of the day. If you can't follow, you can't lead. Right? If you don't know how to follow people, if you don't know how to be a good servant, you can't lead others. You can boss them, but you cannot lead them. So what is leadership in 2020? And we're gonna chat through some of these. So if we rewind the clock, and please don't shoot me for any of these because this is just history. If we rewind the clock, do you remember the way 100 years ago there was the great man theory? Obviously it's flawed because we're not born great, and men aren't just great. But there was the great man theory. You had Alexander the Great, you had Henry the Great, you had all these greats, right? And of course they all ended up kings. And so I guess if you own and rule a bunch of land, you could be born great. And the rest of us were peasants. So then that faltered, obviously, because it doesn't make any sense. And then you came in when the manufacturing industrialization era started to occur. You started to get, the one best way, if you will. And that was usually the owner's way or the manager's way. It's because I said so. That's why. And that became leadership. Leadership became, remember Henry Ford, you can have any color you want as long as it's black. And there was no customization. We're going to mass produce everything the same way. And manufacturing still struggles with this today. Creativity, empowerment, engagement, ideology, stuff like that is non-existent in a manufacturing environment. And it's because they're still holding on to this production speed over anything else. You ever drive by big manufacturing places or warehouses, stuff like that? You know what's missing? Windows. Now that I've said it, drive by and look. There's no windows. Why? They don't want them to look outside. They don't want them worried about what the weather's doing. They don't want them to think about the sunlight. They want them heads down, focused on their task over and over and over again. So you have, because I said so, that's why. All right. So then all of a sudden, then you started having a manager. Right? And the manager's out front. I'm the hard charger. I'm the one with all the ideas. The rest of you all just follow right along with me and do what I say. And so you started to have this notion of I'm going to push and everybody else follow. Right? And so one of the things that I want you to think about, we won't go through discussion because it'll be really hard, I think, virtually. But one of the things that I want you to think about is write down, and so we're going to pause for like 120 seconds when I'm done talking. I want you to think about the greatest traits of your favorite leader and the ugliest traits of, well, you pick, right? And so write down two each, write down traits, not names, traits. So greatest trait of a leader, what are the two greatest traits of a leader that you've worked for? And what are two of the ugliest traits? Two things that you would just never want to emulate again. 120 seconds.
Go ahead and pop it in the chat if you've got some that you are thinking of. Go ahead and tell us what you think those greatest traits are, and then in a minute we'll put the worst traits.
John, and I can't see the chat since I'm sharing my screen, so I'm going to rely on you.
Yeah, I'll read it out. So I said honesty and authenticity. Emily Smith said abundance versus scarcity mindset. Christy said articulate vision and empower others, be selfless. Ability to admit a mistake. Authenticity and being willing to do anything that they ask of others. So like doing, right? Don't just do what I say, like I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to, clean the bathrooms or whatever that is, right? Christy said ugly, not open to feedback or self-centered. Yeah, let's talk about some of those horrible traits. Like what are the ones that just stand out to you that are terrible? Mine is like ego, right? Like when somebody, it has to be all about them. Like I think there's a fine line, right, between like, oh, John, you said liar, that's awesome. Dishonest, Brittany, I love that. I think a double standard is really big, right? Nobody likes to see that like things are one way for one people or a different way for somebody else. Transparency and humility are positives. My way or the highway mentality, yeah, like just do it, right? Nike style. Not making time for others, ego, not listening to others' input. Yeah, those are all really good.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Right. So my challenge to you, one of the things that I want you to think about is that I firmly believe that no one starts out as a jerk and gets nice under stress. It always works in the inverse. So I'm going to say it again for the people in the back. No one starts out as a jerk and gets nice under stress. It always works in the inverse. And so when you get stressed and when you get pressure as a leader and as your leaders, right, as you go down in your organization, your leaders, do they ever show the behaviors that you don't like? And do you ever show those behaviors? And then the question you have to ask yourself is why. I was, huge shout out. I hear that you're mentioning 100% responsibility. If I leave you with nothing else over the next 3 hours that we're going to spend together, like 100% responsibility is the kicker. It will drastically change your life. But 100% responsibility says, well, John was mean to me, so I was mean back to him. No, you just gave me control over you. You're not doing that. Right. And so ask yourself the question of why. All right, we're going to pop through a couple more slides and then we're going to pop up a Prezi and we're going to hope that that works. All right, so we talked through these here. Sorry, I clicked on the, okay. So we're going to focus on leading the whole, not the parts. What do I mean by that? I'm not focused on just leading a manager or just leading an agent or just leading an ops person. I'm focused on leading the ecosystem, right? So think about everything that you interact with as an ecosystem. And what makes an ecosystem? The environment, the people, and the process. And I put tools under processes because tools really just execute a process, right? And so I want you to think about leading the whole. You can apply this anywhere you want to, right? The other thing is it's not focused on common leadership tactics. What do I mean by that? I assume that you have been taught the common leadership things over and over and over again, and I'm a horrible attorney. And so I don't get into things like document. I don't get into, we're not going to get into compensation conversations, so on and so forth. We're just going to get into talking about leading people. And we're going to talk about it in two different ways. We're going to talk about it in terms of leading others and talk about it in terms of leading self. So a couple of things to think about. Good to Great, phenomenal book. It was my research project in my master's program. Do a critical analysis of it. A lot of good common leadership stuff in here. Go read it, right? You got The Servant, another great book. You've got Lean Leadership. You see how you got How the Mighty Fall. So after Collins wrote Good to Great, then he wrote How the Mighty Fall. Right? Because he had to come back and go, oops, we had a couple fall. Why? And go research. And so I don't assume, we're not going to go through the stuff that the common things that you're going to find in a lot of these books. We're going to approach it from a little bit of a different angle. Okay. So I'm going to again tell you, I think culture is the strategy. And so what I want you to get out of this next segment, and it most likely will probably get real close to wrapping there, and then pick up tomorrow where you get more involved and engaged and doing some homework. In fact, I may give you some, cliffhanger. Here you go, John. I'm going to give you homework before I leave today. And so that way you can come back tomorrow. We don't have to spend a lot of time writing and we can just spend a lot more time sharing and brainstorming. Does that work?
Yeah, John, is the homework something I have to do with my child? Because he doesn't listen to anything I say. So am I going to be able to apply some of this to my relationship with my family?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so when we think about culture as a strategy, we're going to define what it actually means. We're going to then talk about why culture is a strategy. And then we're going to talk about how to actually create a culture, right? And get people engaged. So for the people in Nashville last year, it's going to be a little bit redundant. Just bear with me. The good news is I put it in a new format. So maybe I'm going to shake it up a little bit. And you'll probably see some new stuff in here. But that's what we're going to click through and go. Okay, so let's stop the share of this and let's see if this now works. Everybody hold your breath, across your fingers.
I was in Nashville and I've already forgotten most of this stuff, so we're good. And I have a B+ memory, so I'm sure that nobody here remembers 100% of it.
I'm just glad you got 100%. Look, that's 100% responsibility right there. You already live.
Or the quote that I love is no man ever stands in the same river twice, for either the man has changed or so has the river, right? So we're hearing this with fresh ears in the moment.
That is awesome. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, sir.
All right. So a couple of things. The big question that I want you to replay to yourself as we go through this part is culture. Are you shaping it or is it shaping you? I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to tell you that each one of your organizations has a culture. It's either helping you or it's hurting you. And if you haven't defined it and you're not actively working on it every day, it is hurting you. I don't need to come to your organization and see. I don't need to talk to your people. It is absolutely hurting you, whether you realize it or not. And here's the thing about culture. Culture is a lot like a deadly disease. It's very, very silent most of the time until it's too late. Somebody said earlier that you had to have that implode moment before you could get better. Like that sent chills down my spine. You know, like the best time to me to focus on culture is when everything's going really well. If you're making a lot of money and your business is doing great, that is absolutely the right time to focus on culture. I can tell you a story about a small computer manufacturer named Dell who didn't focus on their culture. And then the dot-com bubble burst and they laid off a third of their staff. And then they decided to work on culture. And then they named it. And if you name your culture, you don't have a culture. You have an initiative. You do not have a culture, right? And so are you shaping it or is it shaping you? So let's talk through what a couple of these things mean, okay? So why did we not click through? There we go. Oh, hold on. Okay, your turn. I have $10 million to support your business. You have 30 seconds to convince me you have an amazing strategy. Can you do it? In 30 seconds or less, can you convince me that you have an amazing strategy? And if you can't, why? What's preventing you from being able to do that? All right, so you don't have to time me, but here you go. So at Stanza Electric Company, we exist to grow people, serve communities, and build community. At Stanza Electric Company, we exist to grow people, serve our customers, and build our communities. We do that on focusing on 100% responsibility, on making sure that we engage in healthy conflict, and making sure we empower people to change things for the better. And where we're going is in the next 3 years, we want to be a $100 million company at 10%. Took me about 10 seconds, 15 maybe because I stumbled, right?
Does anybody else want to try theirs? I know a few people on this call have one that's pretty patent. See if anybody has the nerve to go. No, too shy?
Oh, be brave. Come on.
Be brave. Sheena, no? Nobody? All
We have
right.
a vision of a world without worry for food, water, warmth, and rest through our mission to increase our clients' wealth, resources, and opportunities through real estate to create a legacy of global giving.
Woo woo! Good job, Kristen. A+.
Overachiever. Overachiever.
A+.
She had it pulled up on her screen. I saw her.
That's awesome. All right, so
Do we say it every morning on the call?
We do. She brainwashes us.
That's
perfect.
amazing.
I love it. You've got to repeat this stuff over and over and over again. So many people tell me, oh, leadership's the most important thing. And you go talk to their teams. And I'm like, well, what does your leader talk to you about the most? What do you think their answer is? Make money. Make money, make money, make money. Every organization I've ever walked in, just about I hear the same thing. What's the most important thing to the leaders? Make money. I go talk to leaders. What's the most important thing? Our people, our customers, giving back. Interesting. Where do you spend 90% of your time? On making money. And so, okay, let's keep going. So architecting and shaping this culture is the single hardest, most impacting, high rewarding initiative a leader is supposed to accomplish. I love that you all repeated earlier the three things. John, what are they?
I gotta unmute myself. It's the right people on a mission together.
Right. I remember when I came and spoke to this group in Nashville, it's what is a culture? And I got up and I said, hey, the good news is it's really, really easy to say. It's really, really hard to do. And it's those three things. And I kind of just acted like I was going to walk off, right? Like, okay, here it is. I'm done. The right people on a mission together. So we're going to talk about how you do that. We're going to talk about how you build that as a leader. Okay. So culture eats strategy for lunch unless culture is your strategy. So the lady that just reviewed hers, right? That's phenomenal. But if I walk in your organization, I find a toxic culture, you're not making any progress on it, guaranteed. Right? I love that the team member sitting there next to her says, hey, yeah, she brainwashes us. I love that. Brainwash me. Get me fired up. Get me engaged, because that's what you want me to do. Okay. So what do you want your culture to look like? I'll tell you what I want to look like is I want actively engaged people delivering phenomenal results. Right now, 30% of the American workforce is actively engaged. Think about that for a minute. 30%. That's a very, very low margin. And you say to yourself, you're like, well, yeah, but I'm different, or my industry's different, or my company's different, or management teams are different. Not true. It changes about 2% between your hourly workforce and your management workforce. 2%. I want to change like 50%, right? And so 30% of people are actively engaged, right? What does it look like? They got this positive attitude. They seek excellence. They find solutions to problems. Here's a good culture test for you. By the way, John, I'll send you the link for this thing so you can share it far and wide.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So could you imagine, here's a good culture test. How many problems a day do you solve? Versus how many problems a day does your team solve? Because if they're coming to you to solve all their problems, then you're not helping them and they're not helping you. And will they solve them just like you do? Nope. And that's okay, right? Because they're going to be actively engaged to trying to solve the problems. But what you're looking for is you're looking for people to be finding solutions. Obviously, they're going to produce results. They're going to build commitment towards goals. They're going to encourage teamwork. They're going to act to empower and trust others. I'm taking the executive leadership team of our company for an offsite in 2 weeks. And the entire 4 days, what we're going to spend is building a high trust team. We've gone through some org change. Some people are leaving. We've got some new people. And it just dawned on me the other day, like a light bulb going off. I thought, man, we don't have high trust right now. We've got to have high trust or the whole thing crumbles. And so we're going to go and we're going to spend time on that. And that's going to be a very interesting experience for them. And I'm excited that they get to go through it. Okay, so let's keep clicking. So disengaged people. 50% of your team is disengaged. 50%. Does that scare you? Half of your staff is disengaged. Again, this is industry agnostic. It's salary agnostic. It does not matter, right? And what do I mean by disengaged people? It demonstrates an attitude of passivity. It's just a passiveness. Delivers adequate results. How many people on your team have you ever? Here you go. Have you ever said on your team, "Well, that's a B player, but I got to have B players"?
we say like not everybody's going to be a 10. Like sometimes you need like 6s, but maybe you'll challenge me on that one.
Oh yeah. So here it comes. You ready? Why in the world would you ever accept it? Do you pay them 60% of what you should be paying them?
No.
Right. Here's what really happens when we say, hey, I need B players, or I need role players, or I need, not everybody's gonna be a 10, but I need some 6s. What we're really saying is that we're saying we need people to do the job that we've hired them to do. And not everybody's going to be a manager, or not everyone's going to be a product specialist or a marketing guru. And it's actually doing a disservice to the person. Because would you ever sit down with them and say, hey, I just need you to be a 6. I don't need you to be a 10. No way. What you would say is, hey, this is the role I have for you. And I'm going to hire the right person for that role and get out of your way and let you kill it every day. Right. And so we got a lot of, I mean, just in industry in general, you've got a lot of people that deliver adequate results, and we accept that for some reason. Right. Low discretionary effort. You got the person that punches the clock. You got the person that, if you're ever hiring somebody, they go, what are office hours? I usually walk away right there. And it's not that I want you working 80 hours a week. It's just that I want people that understand it's not about how long you work. It's about what you get accomplished. I don't care if you work 20 hours or if you work 100 hours. What I care about is what the results are. And I'll help you if you're having to work 100 hours to get it done. Then I need to partner with you and help you either become more efficient or get some stuff off your plate. But the only time we're really going to talk about it is if work's not getting done, right? Enough effort just to get by, and has low commitment, low passion for the job. You already got names in your mind, don't you? You got people in your head right now, and you're like, what in the world am I doing? Okay, before you go to them and say, darn it, Sheena, why are you disengaged? We're going to learn a tool tomorrow where the first person that I'm going to have you look at, who do you think it's going to be? Somebody other than John, give me an answer here. I'm going to pipe the rest of y'all in. And I can't see the chat. So if you chat, I can't see it.
Sheena.
Huh?
Who? Somebody said Sheena.
Yeah. Absolutely, right? Look, how easy is it to look at our organization and point all the fingers? How hard is it to point it right back here? Yeah. Right. So the first question you ask yourself is, what am I doing to cause disengagement? Am I allowing passivity? Am I enabling it? I can't tell you how many organizations I've found around the world that enable people to sit in this bucket. They want them to. Because it's like, well, they're not as hard to manage. They don't have as many expectations. They just do their job every day. I'm like, what? No. I want a whole team of LeBron Jameses. My job is to figure out how to manage them. And I am okay to pay everybody 50% over the market because I'm getting 100% return. All right.
I think that creates a lot of stress for a lot of leaders to think about the idea of having a bunch of LeBron James and how to manage that. I think that's kind of daunting.
It's terrifying, right? And here's where so many leaders fail. LeBron James doesn't want to be the coach or the GM. He wants to be the power forward, and he wants to be the best power forward that he can be. And if we clearly identify somebody's role, I think so many people think high performer means high growth, means that they have to scale, they have to do more. There is an entire population of people out there that want to be the best of the best at what they do, and they don't want any more responsibility.
Christy had asked if you could share what you're doing to build trust with your team at your retreat.
Yes. So this is an organization in rural Arkansas called Team Trek. And I'll get that link sent out as well. But Team Trek, and if you go there, you're going to see a lot of repeat of some of this stuff because they are my Obi-Wan, if you will. Team Trek is an experiential learning center, and what they're going to do is put us in situations to get us out of our comfort zone and really push us to build trust with each other. The other thing we're doing is we're taking a survey ahead of time where we're going to tell each other how we really feel. And the whole goal, the whole head fake of it is that we're going to try to be, construction people aren't very good about telling you what their weaknesses are and their insecurities, right? They're tough guys or tough gals. They're not real good at it. They're good at, used to just get stuff done. And so what we're going to try to do is build an environment or build a place where we can just say, look, I need some help in this area. Does anyone want to sign up to help me? And so one of the ways you really build trust is by being vulnerable. And then if you're vulnerable and you allow people to come into your space and help you, then you build trust. But so oftentimes as leaders, what do we get into? Well, if I don't do it, nobody's going to do it. Or I'm the only one that can get it done. Or I can't show my team weakness because if I show them weakness, then they won't trust me and they won't follow me. All of that's nonsense. Sheena mentioned earlier, I did a class this morning for Belmont on this applied empathy book. And in the middle of the thing, we were talking about, I used to struggle with empathy. I still struggle with empathy. I used to really struggle with empathy. In the middle of the thing, I got emotional, right? And so you could see a couple people on the video, like, they were really uncomfortable. This man's crying. Yes, I am. That's okay. That's one of my vulnerabilities, right? It is okay to be vulnerable. And the more vulnerable we are, the more trust we build, if you allow somebody to help you. The good news about disengaged people, by the way, is you can push them into engaged people. So disengaged people can still be saved. They can still be managed up into actively engaged. And actively engaged people can go to disengaged. This group scares me to death, actively disengaged people.
Wait, hold on. I want to get that. That's really important, right? We really need to understand that people are fluid. These are human beings. You do not get somebody you don't hire somebody who is just going to be actively engaged forever. And you don't hire somebody who's going to be disengaged forever. People are people. And so they are always moving between these quadrants, right?
Between the,
right. I know where you're going. So.
Yeah. They'll move between the actively engaged and the disengaged, no doubt. If you get actively disengaged, you got a problem. You got a lot of work to do one way or the other. So I'll share a story. So in the fall of 2017, the fall of 2017, my boss, the owner of our company, took me to lunch one day. And he said, "Hey, what's wrong?" And I said, "Nothing. Why?" And he said, you're disengaged. So we put this verbiage into our world, and we share these definitions with people. That way we create this environment where I can sit down and say, Sheena, you're disengaged. What's going on? You're showing me disengaged behavior. And a lot of the time I said, what are you talking about? I'm the head of HR. I'm the head of blah, 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 blah. I'm not disengaged. And he goes, really? Let's look at the last few months. And he started to give me examples that fall into each one of these. And in this 2-hour lunch, what we ended up understanding from each other was what in the environment had caused me to become disengaged, and what I needed to commit to do different, and what he was going to commit to do different. What a healthy conversation that is. And I mean, I'm a decent senior guy in our company, like on level wise, and I can get disengaged. So, you know, John, great call out and great pause. People are people. By the way, actively engaged and disengaged can occur inside and outside your organization. If life is hard outside, it's really hard to be actively engaged. And the whole notion of keep work at work and home at home, that's a lie. It's the second biggest lie to me. The biggest lie is control your emotions. Anybody show of hands? Anybody in here been told to control your emotions?
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Guess what? Secret. You cannot control your emotions.
John, I have a thing I want to add in. You can get to this anytime, but I'm just curious how you guys are handling. We live in sometimes I know we aren't really at the core, but sometimes it feels like we're a very divided nation and we're very divided people and we're on two sides of an aisle. I'm curious how you're handling politics or that sort of crossroads where we're at, where we feel like a lot of people are kind of in conflict with one another at your organization. And if that's something you guys actively address, bring up, do you encourage people to talk about their feelings and their thoughts, or do you try and shove it under the rug? Like, I'd love to talk about that at some point. It doesn't have to be now.
Cool. Hey, when I get to our culture compass slide, if I don't bring it up, remind me, please. Do you mind to take that?
Yeah, no problem. Will do.
Cool. All right. So disengaged, we're working on our disengaged people. So I've collected now 80% of your team. Here's the bottom 20% of your team. They are actively disengaged. Did you ever watch The Lion King, Mufasa? Ooh, say it again. This is your Mufasa moment, right? 2 out of every 10 people in your organization are actively disengaged. Mediocre to poor results. Behaviors of being a problem rather than solving one. Discouraging teamwork, is misaligned, can be defensive, recruits other people to be disengaged with me, and even may engage in sabotage of your business, right? We hold on to these people way too long. We hold on because we have hope, and we hold on because, well, they used to be really good, or they didn't always act this way. Okay, your job as a leader is to sit down and say, you are actively disengaged, and here's the examples. This is not okay. If you allow actively disengaged people to stay in your environment without being addressed, what happens is that they become cancers. And they kill your culture, because your actively engaged people will not work with actively disengaged people. They will leave. Anybody in here needing to hire people? You got lots of people standing out your door waiting, lined up, can't, you know, you got hundreds and hundreds of people you're turning away from jobs. Absolutely not. Nobody does right now, right? And so you got to keep your best. And the biggest driver of your best leaving are actively disengaged people. And it's confirmed in surveys. So people will tell you, I think it's Bain. I don't remember who wrote the survey, but it's the 12 questions. Anyway, mine's blank, but the 12 question survey, they will tell you that something greater than like 80% of people don't leave companies, they leave leaders. And I was told that 20 years ago, and I thought it was a crock. And so I started researching it and understanding it. And the number one driver of why people leave leaders is because they allow bad people to stay. Does that make sense? Because your team is evaluating you every day on things like trust, loyalty, integrity, producing results, teaching, training, building culture, etc. So if they look around and they see people that are actively working against you and you're not doing anything about it, then they lose confidence in you. So you got to be really, really careful with this group. This group is hard to move. This group is really, really hard to move. And sometimes the best answer here, while a hard answer, the best answer is, it's not me, it's you. And it's time to find something else to do. Right? So culture.
Christy saved you. She said it's the Gallup Q12 index.
Thank you, Christy. Gallup. I was forgetting the word. All right, so culture eat strategy for lunch, but how do we do this? All right, so this is a lot more words to say what John so eloquently repeated earlier, right? Hire and develop 100% actively engaged people. Your goal every day should have a team of A players that are actively engaged. Discipline, coaching, and removal if necessary of disengaged people. Get them out. Get them up or get them out. And set yourself a commitment. Make a commitment. You know, I'm gonna pick on Sheena and John just because I communicate with them enough. I identify Sheena's actively disengaged. I've got 90 days. I'm setting myself a target, 90 days. She's either going to be up or she's going to be out. And I don't care how much money she makes for me.
John, why do you give it 90 days?
I'm just pulling that rabbit out of a hat.
Okay. Do you?
Some people it may be 5 days. Some people it may be tomorrow. Because I've given them the feedback and they haven't worked on it. But you have to, again, people are people and you have to individualize it. Maybe Sheena's worked for me for 10 years, right? Maybe that she's gone through a couple of hard things in her life. Maybe she didn't get the promotion she really wanted. A couple of deals fell through, you know, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And maybe I say, look, you know, I'm going to have empathy and sympathy, and I'm going to give her a longer runway to turn this thing around. But at the same time, what I'm not going to do is not address it. I'm not going to just sit and let it fester. Now, if Sheena's been with me for 10 years and she's always been kind of disengaged, and I just had my light bulb go off, in the last couple of years, she's been actively disengaged. So where she's producing mediocre results and she's never really been a problem solver. She's just kind of going along with the motion. And then the last couple of years, what I realize is she's gone actively disengaged and she's recruiting John to her cause and she's recruiting Katie to her cause and she's bad mouthing the organization. And that may be a really quick trigger.
Where do you see the warning signs come up? Like, do you see these from your regular check-ins with your people? Do you see them being kind of tattled on by the culture keepers in the organization? How do you identify the problem children?
Yeah, that's a really good question. My answer is yes to everything you said. So when you first start on a cultural journey, what you're going to quickly realize is that not everybody's aligned yet to it. And so you've got to do some work on getting people aligned and getting people engaged to it. And what you're looking for is the people who are in the hallways talking about it negatively. You're looking for behavior in meetings or behavior in team calls. You're looking at results. You're looking for people like you have these folks. I'm trying to think of a good example for real estate, and I'm struggling. I've never been a realtor. I can't sell the devil ice water.
You would make a really great realtor. Don't worry.
No. And so, here's the difference for you. I'm a project manager, and we're building a new building. And so you got project manager A and project manager B. So A and B. A comes to you, John, you're the big boss. And he says, hey, I just want to let you know, the switchgear came in and it was damaged in shipment. I've already contacted the manufacturer and the shipping company. They're working on it. I'll have new switchgear in 5 weeks. I've let the customer know we're going to be delayed. They're not happy, but they understand accidents happen. Here's what we're going to do to try to get ahead of other things in the schedule in order to be ready. Is there anything you want me to do different? Project manager B comes to you and goes, switchgear's damaged, John. They're gonna charge us damages. There's nothing we can do. We're hosed. We're out of luck. Sorry.
Now, who here on the call right now, just pop it in the chat, who here got chills when he gave that example? Because you could immediately identify the person who resonated as person A and who resonated as person B. Like, I didn't really get a ton of mental triggers for person A, but I can tell you for sure person B stood up to me as the person who comes into the meeting and it's just a problem, right?
Yeah, and here's the thing. If you can think of people that match some of these crazy descriptions, then the question becomes is why do you allow it? Sorry, I'm messing with my screen so I can see more of you. I just realized I'd click a different button and get more of you on here, but for some reason it's also moving around the Prezi. So if it's doing it to you all, I apologize. There we go. All right, so why do you allow it? Because at the end of the day, you're the leader, right? And if you set the right culture and you set the right expectation in the beginning, then you have something to go back on. Here's my caution to you. I've had a few people who have joined in trainings and talks and stuff like that, and they'll call me a week or two later. Man, John, I did what you said, and I can see more names now, so this is great. So I went and sat down with Todd Hayes, and I really told him, Todd, you're actively disengaged, and you've got to do better. Blah, 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 blah. And you know what? Todd looked at me and he said, well, when did all this come up? You have to tell people in the beginning what the expectation is. Because if you don't share with them the expectation and then you try to hold them accountable to an expectation, it's the Taco Bell example. So here's my Taco Bell example. I show up at home after work and my wife, Andrea, looks at me. She goes, John, where's the Taco Bell? It's down the road. And she goes, no, where's the tacos? They're at Taco Bell. Well, why didn't you bring some home? Well, you didn't tell me you wanted Taco Bell. Well, I know, but I wanted some and you should have known that. Like, does that not seem ridiculous? And if you're married, you probably are nodding your head, go, yes, that's happened. Right? Because either we forget to communicate or we've had a bad day, whatever it is. But the point being is that if we don't tell people what the expectations are in the beginning, how can we ever expect them to meet them? And what I end up finding is more times than not, it's a little bit sad, is that as leaders, we don't always know what they are. We don't always know what those expectations are. We're just kind of hoping for the best. And so I encourage you to really spend some time and think about what that is. A clear and simple mission. You got to have a clear and simple mission. What's your next big rock? Where are you going? And it has to be repeatable and everybody has to understand it. And it can't have a lot of words. Does that make sense? It's just got to be clear and simple. And then you got to have a culture with these norms and values. That's what I was just talking about, that regulate how we interact with one another. Think about that for just a minute. When you think about culture, what most people struggle with more than anything else is defining it. Because they don't understand why. They don't understand why they need to define it. And what I'm really going to tell you is by defining your culture norms, what you do is you give people regulations for how they interact with each other. You set an expectation. And I'm going to give you an example. So if everybody's like, oh gosh, what does this even mean? I'm going to show you one here in just a second. Okay, so culture. So my buddy, John Wooten, and as a University of Kentucky basketball fan, it pains me to ever use any other basketball coach except a University of Kentucky person. But fortunately for leadership, unfortunately for Kentucky, Wooten is probably the best ever, right? And he has this quote. He says, in 31 years, I never once mentioned the word winning to my team. I taught them to focus on doing the things right, acting with character, performing as a team, and giving all the effort. The scoreboard will take care of itself. The scoreboard will take care of itself. If you just do the things right, if you do everything right, the scoreboard takes care of itself. And this man won a lot of national titles, a lot, right? And so he had a very simple philosophy, right? Which was about do the little things right. I call it blocking and tackling. You got to block and tackle, right? You got to act with character. You got to work together, and you got to give all your effort. If you'll do those four things, everything else will just take care of itself. Let's see here. All right, so keep it simple, silly, right? Again, if you think about these things, clear and simple vision of expectations, right? And recruit trustworthy and skilled athletes, right? Teach, drill, and coach the fundamentals. You need to expect collaboration and teamwork. It needs to be an expectation. It is not okay to have a renegade. I don't know how much it ever shows its head in real estate, but in big corporate America, I can't tell you how many. Here, I'll give you a quick story. There was a guy that worked in the industry that everybody in our company knew, and nobody liked him. He was not a good human. Like, if I tell you you're not a good human, like, you're really probably not a good human, because I love everybody. And he left, he got fired from one of our big customers, and he called us and he said, hey, you need to hire me. And we were like, yeah, no, you're not a fit. And he goes, okay, I'll go work for another big customer and I'll make sure they don't do business with you anymore. And that's what he did. He went and took $25 million a year of profit away. Then they found out he wasn't a good guy. And what'd they do? They fired him. So what'd he do next? He called us. And he said, hey, you better hire me or I'm going to go to your biggest customer. And that's $100 million a year in profit. And I'm going to take it. You know what they did? They hired him. And they stuck him in Southeast Asia, thinking that he couldn't damage the company from Southeast Asia, the culture. And in 8 months, they fired him. You can't hide bad people.
Did you just put a little context? Did you say 100 million in profit?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys, this is the big leagues here. Okay, this isn't the 20 houses that you sold in Seattle or SoCal or whatever, right? 100 million in profit with one employee, right? One person can do that much damage. But I bet you never regret. I bet you didn't hire him back.
No. And I was in there screaming, "Do not hire this guy. Do not hire this guy. Like, you're making a bad decision." And at that point, he was damaged. But yeah, I mean, and sorry if those numbers are not as equitable as they could be, but like we had 2 clients that generated $3.5 billion a year in profit every year between 2 customers. That's a lot of money. All right. So what else does he say? Demand their best and always raise the bar on expectations. Empower them to act and coach when they fail. Let's talk about that for a minute. You ever had him on your team fail?
Yeah.
I coach little league softball. So I coach girls, my daughters and their friends in softball. And you know, I often forget in the heat of the moment when they fail, it's easy to fuss. It's hard to coach. Right? Why did you do that? Last night, our assistant coach's daughter, we're in the championship series, first game, pitcher struggling, hit a pop-up. She catches it. It's a beautiful catch, and she holds the ball. She forgets to throw it. And they scored a run. Her dad came unglued, right? Like, you got to throw the ball. I'm like, you forgot to tell her it was a good catch. You got to throw the ball. Tell her it was a good catch. She's 10. So if we do this to 10 and 11-year-olds, what do we do to adults, right? And so we have to coach when people fail, not fuss. If you're fussing at someone, it's too late. Coaching is about what behavior do you want to see change, not telling them what they did wrong. They already know what they did wrong. Raising the bar on expectations. Randy Posh was a professor at Carnegie Mellon. He did the last lecture. If you've never read the last lecture or watched it, please Google it and spend an hour and 15 minutes and watch it. I watch it twice a year. It's a phenomenal speech. And the guy's dying of cancer, and he delivers his last lecture at Carnegie Mellon. And one of the things he says is in his first class, he went in and he gave them this assignment. And the way he was going to teach the semester was every 2 weeks they worked as a team, you know, small groups, and they would come and present a virtual world that they had built. And every 2 weeks, and the thought was that every 2 weeks they grow in knowledge, skill, and ability. They do peer review and they go to the next one. Does that make sense? And so the first 2 weeks they came in, they all presented, and every single group exceeded his expectations. Every group. So he calls his mentor, Andy Van Dam, and he says, "Andy, what do I do? They're already done. They've exceeded all my expectations. They're better than I expected them to be the entire semester." And Andy said, "You walk back in class tomorrow and you tell them that was really good, but I know it wasn't your best. Here's the kicker, folks. Do not let your limitations limit your team."
That's so cool. We talked earlier. We had a panelist who said, you know, somebody wanted to be on his team, and if they wanted to make 750,000, he probably wasn't a fit for them, or that wasn't going to work because their goals were out of alignment with his vision or what he could provide. And I think that just speaks right to that, right? It's like, don't let your limitations, like, what if you just said no to Michael Jordan because you were like, I don't know how to win 6 championships. Like, I don't know how to achieve these things. And so that's really amazing. Who was the name of the lecturer for the last lecture? We had a question there.
Yeah, Randy Posh, Pausch. But if you Google the last lecture,
yeah.
It'll be your number 1 hit.
That's really fantastic. Thank you.
And it is, I mean, I can't overstate how awesome this video is. It will change your perspective on so many things. So here, I'll give you one more Randy nugget and then we'll move on. Brick walls aren't put in your way to stop you from getting something. They're there to show you how bad you want it. I mean, he's got 100 of those in this talk. So really, really cool dude. All right. Demand they act with character and align with values. Do you demand it? It has to be a non-negotiable. It has to be something that is just not going to be discussed. If you do not act with character and you don't align with the values that we've set in an organization, you can't be part of my team. We have two sayings at Stanzel that we repeat all the time, which is if you can't work safe, you can't work here, because safety in construction is a big deal. And the other one is culture killers need not apply. We say it to every candidate that interviews with us. Over and over again, we say, listen, our culture is right for us. It may not be right for you. That doesn't mean you're wrong and we're right, or we're wrong and you're right. It just means we're different. Remember when you were dating? How many people did you date that didn't culturally align to you? Right? And that's okay. It didn't mean one was right and one was wrong. You were just different. And we drive that home. So John, back to your earlier question of how do we identify culture killers? At first, we identified it by watching behavior, the project manager A versus project management B. Now our team drives out culture killers. It is the coolest thing ever. We do not have to get rid of them. We don't even have to say a word to them. Our team pushes them out. Because our team demands that they act with integrity and that they act with our team values. And if they don't, you're ostracized.
And that's the dream, right? Is to create the organization. It doesn't start out like that on day one. You can't just assume that all of a sudden you're going to have this culture that does that. But that's how you know you're succeeding at a high level, right? Is when you start to see those people take accountability for the culture of the organization and sort of enforce it on their own. That's like a Patriots, football reference, right? Like the Patriots are really good at that.
You got it. And numerous times David Stanzel's tried to change my title to Chief Culture Officer, and I won't let him do it. Because I don't own the culture, everybody does. Right? It's just how you have to operate. And to your point, we're 6 years in this journey in an 81-year-old company. It is not easy. Okay. Ooh, I got to get to my cliffhanger. Okay. All right. So I've already gone over that one. I won't repeat it again. Okay. So I love this, right? So this is General George Patton, right? And this is they're marching to Berlin at the end of the war with Germany in 1944. Could you imagine this message coming across? You're a soldier, you're wet, you're tired, you're hungry, you're hurt. And he says, I don't want to get any messages saying I'm holding on to my position. We're not holding a damn thing. Let the Germans do that. We're advancing constantly, and we're not interested in holding on to anything except the enemy's rear end. Is that a clear and simple mission? Right? Go, go, go. Right? Patton was great at this. Patton, and he could rally people, and he knew they were tired, and he knew they were hurt, but he also knew he needed this push. But he gave him a very clear and simple mission, and he demanded excellence. I wish, by the way, if I could ever go back in history and meet one person, it would be Sun Tzu, who wrote The Art of War. And he said, therefore, it is said that victorious warriors win first, then go to war. Defeated warriors go to war first, then seek to win. If your culture, if you do not define what winning looks like, if you don't define what success looks like, then go to war, you will get defeated. If you go into it, somebody else has already beat you. And I'm not talking about the battle of selling houses. The real estate market, residential real estate market's insane right now, right? I think it's good across the country for the most part. I know it is in Middle Tennessee. It's nuts. I'm talking about winning the war of the culture of the people. I'm talking about getting people to give you more effort than they've ever given you before. What you're after is discretionary effort. Discretionary effort grows exponentially. The output of it will be some order of magnitude bigger than the first 100%, right? And so how do you get people to start to drive in there? People don't care what you know until they know that you care. You ever sat down with someone, you tried to teach them how to do something, but you just met them, kind of like right now? Right? Why do I start with who I am and my family? Because I at least want you to have some relationship with me. Right? And I hope that you take away, like, at least he cares about people. You got a big family. You can't be a total jerk. Right? People don't know, they don't care what you know until they know that you care. And you got to spend time with people to build those relationships, and you got to love on them, and you got to make sure that you're making those emotional deposits into their bank account.
We got a great question, which is, what do you mean by discretionary effort?
Discretionary effort. Okay. Discretionary effort is, it's that extra gear, if you will, or it's the going above and beyond. So it is it's that they have a choice. They have a discretion, right? They have discretion of how much effort they're going to give you. They have to give you enough effort to do the job. If not, and you're keeping them, that's a very different problem and a very different conversation. Discretionary effort is that I am deciding to go above and beyond for you as my leader because I believe in you. Because I believe in the culture and I believe in the organization and I believe in the clear and simple mission. It is the notion of clearly going that extra mile. And so many people measure that in hours. Oh, I'm going to give Jim a raise because he worked 80 hours. No. Measure it in output. And so what happens is if I'm willing to give you 20% more than you ask of me, the results that you'll get out of that 20% are exponentially bigger than the results you get out of the first 100. Does that answer the question?
Yep, that was really good.
All right, hold on, let me check my time here. Ooh, okay, I'm gonna have to keep clicking a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint here. And then I'm going to give you some homework. Stop share. Share screen. PowerPoint. Share. All right, see the PowerPoint?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay, so hopefully you remember this, right? This is the culture compass. Does this look familiar from the meeting in Nashville for those of y'all that were there?
Yes, it does.
Perfect. So let me walk through this with you just a little bit. Why do you have a compass? You have a compass so you know where you're going. If you don't have a compass, or if you use it in today's terms, GPS, maybe this should be our culture Waze, or our culture Google Maps. But if you don't have a compass, then you don't know where you're coming or where you're going. And so ours is very simple. And I'm going to give you an analogy of building a highway. And because we're all been cooped up and we're all tired of COVID, we're all going to the beach together. Okay. But we all live in a town that has one dirt road and it's a big square and you only drive one way and you only turn right. Everybody with me? So all the cars enter the dirt road, they all go the same way and they only turn right. So you never have head-to-head conflicts. You never have to worry about merging into traffic, etc. Everybody goes the same way on a one-lane dirt road. And so what happens is that a big, huge paving company comes in and they pave a 5-lane asphalt blacktop right through the middle of town. You've never seen one before. What's your first question? Why does this exist? What is this? That is your purpose. Your purpose is why you exist. And I said this when you all were with me last time. If your purpose is to make money, say that. Because if it is and you don't say it, everybody's going to see right through you. If you exist to make a lot of money, just say that. Don't be scared. But if you exist for other reasons, then say that. I can tell you, I've seen the Stanzel family live this so many times. I've seen them spend their own money to grow people, serve customers, and build communities when they didn't have to. Do they want to make money? Sure they do, but it's not why they exist. As David often says, I could sell this business, go invest, and make a lot more than I make in construction. Just an investment, right? So your purpose is why you exist. So our 5-lane asphalt highway exists to get us to the beach. Here we go to the beach. You ready? So now we're going to put 400 cars on the highway. There's no lines, there's no guardrails, there's no signs, there's nothing. It's just 5 lanes of asphalt. What happens? Pandemonium, right? Chaos, wrecks. There's no speed limits. Nobody knows what to do. They've never seen anything like it in their life. And that's where the rest of this comes into play. So the mission is where you're going. So the purpose is to get us to the beach. The mission would be something like, we're going to all go to the beach successfully or safely. The vivid descriptions tell us what it looks like when we get there. So this is our 2022 mission. So in 2016, we wrote this, and in 2022, we want to be a company people trust to power projects safely, successfully every time. How do we know we got there? You see these vivid descriptions. Well, you should be able to find these in our organization all the time. But we've still, okay, so now we know why our highway exists, and now we know where it goes and what it looks and what it's going to look like, but we still don't know how to drive on it. And that's where your values and your norms come into play. So your values are your guardrails. They can't change. Your core values should stand the test of time. They're what keep you safe. And they're what your organization should absolutely do. Quality in work, happy customers, caring for employees, fair and honest treatment of all. Those are your values. And most companies have those first four things in some shape or form. Where they don't have is their culture norms. These are the behaviors. Remember we talked about earlier, this regulates the way that we interact with each other. You're going to notice they're all I statements. And it starts with 100% responsibility. No shocker, I hope. But your norms are defined within your team. So get the people together that you want to have a voice in this and ask them how you want them to interact with each other. How do you want to engage each other? And you can see ours here. These may not be yours, right? Always think the best of my teammates. You know how hard that is to do, right? Engage in healthy conflict. How much healthy conflict do you have versus how much unhealthy conflict do you have versus how much no conflict do you have when you should have some? Right, the president of the company and I, we had a lot of healthy conflict yesterday. He tried to call me while I was presenting to you all. He's already texted me 3 times. Give him a call. He wants to follow up on our healthy conflict. I know he does, right? And that's okay. Holding teammates accountable, committing to team decisions. The list goes on and on. But if you don't define why you exist, where you're going, what you value, and then how you act with each other. Think about on our highway. If our values are our guardrails, our culture norms are the white and yellow lines on the road. Could you imagine driving on a highway without white and yellow lines? I've been to India, so I've done it. It's crazy. And you have to dodge, the cows and everything else. But imagine that in our country. You would never fathom it. But how many organizations do that? And then what happens is then we go up to people and we're like, well, I'm trying to find a new name here. Megan Morris. I see Megan Morris's name. So then you go up to Megan and you're like, hey, Megan, the other day when you were talking to John, he really needed you to commit to that decision and you didn't commit. You just kept telling him what was wrong with it. And Megan looks at you and says, well, duh. You told me to challenge bad ideas. You never told me that at some point I just had to go, okay, it is what it is. I commit. Let's go. Let's give it all we got. Because you didn't define for me that was the expectation. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's see here.
I think that's so important. Something we kind of learned the hard way, to put that expectation. That really spoke to me when you said, you can't just all of a sudden, like I think a lot of us, we go to our big conventions and we're like, oh, we learned how to do all these things, and go back to our team and we're like, here's everything we're doing now. And they're like, what the hell is going on right now? And I think, we come up with we call 30, 60, 90, our 90-day training. And we actually have some documents that really talk about, of course we have conversations too, but also documentation that they read too, that talks about our mission, values, our expectations. I think that's important to start. I mean, obviously all that stuff should be talked about in those first conversations. And some of the best people, I think, when they come into those interviews, they'll say, what makes a great, team member on your team? I had somebody ask that recently, and I knew she was probably going to make a great team member because she thought to ask that question, who works well on your team? And I think that makes it really easy to be able to help someone either self-select off from the start, or bring them on. But it opens things up for those conversations. But you really do have to take the time to figure out exactly what those are. Like if you do anything this year, even before the business planning piece, figure out who you are, what you stand for, what you will accept, and get as granular as you can with that, because that's going to help you, especially for a lot of people. I mean, I'm a high D, but I'm also have a lot of I, and I think a lot of people on this call are that way. And so maybe we let things go for longer than we should. We excuse their things, their stuff that ends up being very toxic to everybody in the organization. So setting yourself up to, setting it up so that the whole team knows exactly, what your culture is, what you stand for, what you're going to allow. I think that's foundational. It's so critical. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right. So here's your homework. I just put it. Well, let me, Megan just asked a question. See, I called her out and then she asked a question. Is there an exercise book to follow to go through together as a team to better define these? These being your culture norms, Megan, is that what you're asking?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I guess my question is there a resource or something that anyone has or to point me to kind of go through this exercise with the team, because I do think that we have gone away from it as we have shifted. So I would love to kind of go through this exercise with the team and really get back to what the culture is so that we can have that 30-second speech that you kind of went over right at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's lots of firms out there that'll do this, right? I mean, Team Trek is the one we picked. There are lots of organizations that are out there that can help you. You know, as far as like, is there like a book? I've not found one that I love. Yeah, Brittany Stewart, I'm with you, right? A book opportunity. You know, I will say, and it's a shameless plug, is that I spend 33% of my time doing my job. I spend 33% of my time worried about our culture and where we're going. And I spend 33% of my time doing whatever I want to do. And that's the agreement that I have with the owner of our company. And part of that is to help other companies. And so Sheena and John know how to get in touch with me, and I can help your team facilitate through some of these. I don't make any money on it. I pick a charity and I ask for donations, and I don't even set a number. One day I'm going to figure out how to monetize all this, but I haven't done that yet.
This guy is the real deal, people. Like, he literally is so giving and open. I mean, it's crazy that he's been willing to share everything with us, both in Nashville and now. Basically just what he said, like, pick a charity, whatever number you want to throw at it, great. And he is so giving and helpful. So yeah, I mean, it's an exercise I think we could all benefit from, right? And not just with our primary core business, right? Like, there's so many different ways this applies throughout our life, right? We have so many different teams and organizations within our life, right? From friend groups to, you know, mastermind groups to family units to, like, you know, how many people have conflict within their family, you know, when it starts to get a little larger and you bring extended family and people in, and then you find they don't speak to one another, and there's, you know, and these are like your most essential relationships. And so I think a lot of this has broad application.
Love to hear that. Yeah. So, you know, they know how to find me. So if I can help at all, let me know. But really, Megan, it's about asking your team for their input. It's about asking them, what behaviors do we really want to commit to show each other every day, without exception? And I think you'll find those. Those will relatively float to the surface. Wordsmithing, it's easy. All right, so here's your homework. I put it in the chat. What I want you to think about is, for you as a leader, for you as a human being, what is your purpose? What are your values? Where are you going? And how will you get there? I'll give you an example. My purpose in life is to pour back in. And what I mean by that is, I've had so many blessings in my life where people have poured into me, and I want to pour back into others. That's why I'm here. What are my values? My values are full potential. So I believe everybody has a full potential, and the only thing that hinders us from getting there is ourselves. I value faith. I can't talk about me without talking about my faith. I value family, and that doesn't just mean blood. Family is family, right? And all that comes with family. And I value trust. Where am I going? Well, right now I'm on two personal journeys. One is I'm trying to grow in empathy. I'm still working on that. It's still a struggle for me. Believe it or not, everyone does not see the world the way I see it. I don't know why. I wish they did, but they don't. And I'm trying to work on my empathy, and I'm trying to lose some weight. and how am I going to get there, right? And I've got some plans around what I'm doing, stuff like that, like signing up to teach a Belmont college class on applied empathy. The irony of this, like I started this with, they picked the worst to try to teach you this. So, you know, I'm sure I'm taking more out of it than anybody else did. So there's an example. Yeah, right, John, if you want to master something, teach it, you know, the surgeon model, watch, do, teach. And so that's your homework, and we're going to use that tomorrow. So here's your cliffhanger for tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to talk about, I'm going to give you some strategies and some ways to identify actively engaged, disengaged, actively disengaged people, and how you handle that. And then I'm also going to give you some strategies and some talk about how to lead yourself. And that's hard. The hardest person to lead is you. But my friend Dick Wells here in Nashville, who wrote a book, said, if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. You might be able to boss them, but you can't lead them. Jackie O, Real Estate Team Boston, the homework is, what is your purpose? What are your values? Where are you going? How will you get there? It's in the chat, about 5 up.
So I put us back on Brady Bunch. Number one, if you got any value out of this and somehow you got here on a free link or a free ticket or whatever it is, and you have not sent a Venmo to Sheena, please Venmo at Sheena-Sadam. It's all over the place. Please Venmo her some money for this guy. I mean, he's incredible, right? Number one, there's so much value here. Number two, let's all say thank you. Big round of applause, John White, for such an amazing part one. You're just the best. Next thing, last thing is, let's share some ahas or ask some questions. I put you on Brady Bunch so we can open it up. So if anybody has questions or wants to share an aha real quick, feel free to unmute yourself and share right now.
I want to thank Megan Simpson, Angela Cummings, and Brittany Stewart for your really, really generous donations you just sent in. Thank you. That's all going to Amputee Blade Runner, guys. So if you got anything from this, if you feel the tickets were, what, $40? If you paid $40 and you feel like you got more than $40 worth of value, I certainly did, and I will be making my contribution as well. I got like 2 pages of notes and some homework, and I'm super excited. One thing that maybe you didn't come to talk about really, John, but is kind of interesting, and I don't know if there's anything really to say about this, but you talk about that you need to build your empathy. And which is funny because although your purpose is to like pour into people, and I sort of feel similarly, like I think my purpose is to do as much good as I can every day for the people in my lives, whatever I can do. I mean, I just saw somebody yesterday in our Facebook group who I think I've created a culture within one of my Facebook groups of like empowering women. And one woman just said, I just want everyone in here to know that I just moved out of this house where I was abused by my husband, and I'm out and I'm free. And I was like, give me your address. I wanted to send her a little gift. I don't know her. We won't get anything from that except that like karma, and like we should just do as much good for people when we see it. But I guess people always think, oh, you must have so much empathy. You care so much. And I don't know. It's like, I think really it's like just a sense of duty. And I thought that was a problem. Maybe I'm a psychopath, but the fact that you said it, at least we can be in the same club.
Empathy is, sympathy is easy for me. Empathy is really hard. Just really, really hard. I think having daughters helped me see that, realizing that not everybody sees the world the way a 41-year-old white male does. And so having children from Asia and having some females around me that are all strong-willed has been really, really good for me. So, hey, John,
who else has an aha they want to share? What did you guys get out of this?
I'll go. I think it was really cool because I did go to Nashville and I felt like this was a huge value piece for my team. And my team has dramatically changed since last year, yet here I am still needing this exact same talk. And my admin can kind of hear as well going on. And so everything that you're saying, it's good because hopefully you're bringing in the reinforcements.
Yeah, you can't be a prophet in your own backyard. So you guys are going to get the recording to this. And like, this isn't that thing that you just go to by yourself. and then you don't share it with anyone, right? Like bring this to your team, right? Sit down and like, don't just like send it to them, right? Don't just like message it to them and be like, hey, I hope you watch this. Like carve out an hour and put this on TV in your office and watch it with them, and then talk to them about it when it's over, right? This isn't just for the leader, right? This is for the entire organization. That's awesome. Thanks, Brittany. What else did you guys get out of this?
I have something.
Yeah,
John, you gave me some new language for something that I've struggled with in our industry for a while. I hate the word talent versus no talent. So actively engaged versus disengaged gives me new language around something that's a very similar concept. And so I was grateful for that, number one. But I loved I have like 3 solid pages of notes. So thank you for your time today. I wrote down measure in output, not in hours. Discretionary effort grows exponentially. And I know that to be true, but it was just great to hear somebody else say it. So thank you for that.
Emily, how many deals will your team do this year?
We're on track to close 1,000.
And you learned something from this group, from John.
Yes, absolutely. You can learn something from anyone.
And not to bury the lead, but Emily will be sharing all about her 1,000 units and everything else tomorrow. So thank you, Emily, for being here. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I was excited.
Who else has an aha or a question for John before we wrap up? Yeah.
I do. I think it's so, I guess it's more just in general for everybody who's spoken today, but I just think it's so amazing how different what we might be looking for is, how different teams are, and how we define an actively engaged person in our organization, but yet how the same we are, even if we are really different. There's so much overlap, even if what our culture is. It's like what he said, like your culture might not be my culture, and that's okay. You might not be a great fit for me, and different people are different great fits for different organizations. And I just think that's amazing.
I love that. I think everybody, right? We believe that everybody has their home, right? Everybody has a place that will be their fit. And so if you hold on to somebody that's not a fit for your culture, you're preventing them from finding an organization in which they can flourish. So don't hold on to those people. Set them free. Right, Kristen?
I was just going to say, John, I have to say thank you, because last year in Nashville, it was a very pivotal moment for me. And shortly thereafter, my whole team imploded. And if it hadn't been for the very palpable description of culture, I don't think I would have been able to see the forest from the trees at that point. And so now, I've taken up the mantle and I'm spreading the good news as you've shared. And I appreciate you give us that beacon. I joke that you're an avatar, not a human, because I don't understand how you can be so wonderful, but my eye is going crazy. I love having somebody to follow in footsteps. So thank you for your time.
I can assure you I've learned by messing up a whole lot. So a lot of work to do. Hey, John, I know we're about 3 minutes over. May I have liberty to show a video of Molly?
Please do. Absolutely. Now would be perfect.
So just so you all know, Molly's our daughter. In fact, she may be here. While I'm showing this, I'll see if she's around, just so you all get an idea of kind of who you're helping. So,
and if you leave right now, I will write your name down and kick you out of the group. So just know, I fully expect participation.
Here's a little video they just did. Let's see.
Speaking of cultural norms and expectations.
All right, can you see that?
Yep.
All right. Can you hear
My
that?
name is Daryl Farler. I'm a volunteer for Amputee Blade Runners. Amputee Blade Runners, ABR, we're a nonprofit organization that provides free running legs to amputees. 14 years ago, I was scratched by a dog in the corner of my left eye and got an infection through my tear duct. I slowly started to go into septic shock. I lost sight in my left eye. Then we had the amputations, and I had my feet and hands done the same day. I dealt with the emotional stress of becoming an amputee, and I wanted to become more active. There was opportunity to volunteer in different capacities with the charity.
There are probably only a handful of bilateral amputees that run in the world, and he is one of those really special people that gets out and tries as hard as he does every day. But what I really admire about Daryl is,
so you see this little cute thing in the corner right here? This is Molly.
The compassion that he has for others.
He brings a level of sympathy and empathy to a kiddo going through what Molly's going through, because he lives it every day.
It's very important to let people, especially children, know that they can do what they set out to do. If they can go out and run with their friends, if they can play tag, whatever it is, it helps them stay part of that community.
She can keep up better. Just allows her to be included. It allows her to do everything else that the kids in her class can do.
It's humbling to be able to help an individual overcome this disability. Really call it different ability, because ultimately you're different, and that's great, and we celebrate it. But now you have the right equipment. Now it's time for you to go out and do the things that you enjoy and that you love.
Yeah, so that's who you're helping. So I just really appreciate it. They build all those for free for people, and Molly is the first human in the world to have her condition, weigh less than 50 pounds, and have a running blade. And if we'd have paid for that blade out of pocket, it would have been about $250,000. So they're very, very expensive. So thank you very much, and I will see you tomorrow.
Thank you again, John. We really, really appreciate it. We are super looking forward to tomorrow. Last thing before you log off, we are going to send out a fresh link for tomorrow. So check your inbox, check the group, private message me. If you don't have the link for tomorrow, find it in the group, let me know. But we're going to put a fresh link up for all of tomorrow's event. So be sure to check that out. Log in again, put your mic, put your camera on, and participate. We'd love to see you. Thank you again. We'll see you tomorrow, John.
Thank you all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Guys. Thank you. Thank you. So grateful.